So, Vasco, you said your goodbyes to the archaeologist who has excitedly told you about this tomb, this mausoleum, potentially with lots of treasure, and all he wants in return are any texts and tablets that you can find. You're in the red door in your room, your comfortable rooms, and what happens next is up to you.
I don't remember whether or not he had done so, but Vasco will immediately, obviously, inform his comrades that all of the information he's just acquired, that they are to go to this mausoleum and they are to recover any scripture, and in return they are allowed to get all of the gold. So he is going to go and find Balthazar, first of all. And he's just going to, like, I don't know, do we have our own separate rooms? I can't remember.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Well, no, you probably have one big suite with, like, curtains or whatever that you can pull over. It's not that fancy.
I just think that at the top of his voice, he's going to say, get ready, we're leaving as soon as possible. What sort of time of day is it, Lloyd?
Probably afternoon. Like just around noon. It's raining, as it does basically every day around this time. The clouds cannot handle the amount of heat, and there's a sudden and terrible downpour.
Then again, the mausoleum has been there for a long time. Perhaps we should set off in the morning. A full day of daylight.
Balthazar would be in his corner of the room, sort of on the other side of a curtain that's been pulled to divide this this large room, and he would be continuously snuffing out and lighting a candle on the other side of the room using magic. So he would be sort of like propped on his bed, and the candle would be across the room, and he's doing like the magical equivalent of like throwing the ball against the wall and catching it, like he's just sort of practicing this trick that he's managed to learn how to do. And he would sort of look over at you, and you can kind of see his silhouette through the curtain, and he would say, we've been resting for a while. I'm good to leave whenever. It's your call.
I think Garak is probably sequestered a portion of the room where he actually has some kind of like fur or something laid out on the floor, where he is like field dressing this, or scraping the fat off of this fur and curing it here in the room, just kind of nonchalantly. Yes, whenever we are ready, I think it would be good to get out of the city for a while.
Are you in an immediate rush, half-breed?
No, I'm perfectly fine with staying another night if that is what we choose. I'm very, very, very in a rush.
First light tomorrow, be ready. And Vasco is going to go and buy some drinks and enjoy his evening, I think.
You can definitely do so. Enjoy your maybe last evening in civilization for a while. You know, it's about 10 days travel north and east of where you are. It'll bring you closer to the orcish city of the Tekwani than you've probably ever been, and deeper into the jungle certainly than you've ever been. But yeah, you can help yourself to liquid bread and various other gross alcohols that you can like find in this place, and drink it down with gusto. What about the other two of you? Would you be doing similar?
Yeah, I imagine there's probably some kind of form of smoking practice that some of the orcs might, use. Not necessarily peace pipe type thing, but some kind of relaxant that they typically engage in. And he's going to see if he can't hunt down some of that for the evening before coming in.
No problem. You can find some CD dealers on street corners who are like definitely willing to sell, but even most of the bars they would sell. Certainly opium is big here, but there would be other smokable high-ends that you can find.
And I think Balthazar would sort of stay behind, and Vasco leaves, and then his half-orc brother would leave as well. And I imagine that he would invite Balthazar along, and Balthazar would decline. And as soon as the room is empty and he's sort of by himself and he's constantly extinguishing and lighting this flame, he extinguishes it again, and the puff of smoke that sort of emanates from this wick as he extinguishes it looks eerily like a panther's face. And he would sort of immediately just be like, okay. And he would sort of get up and head downstairs to distract himself with something, because as soon as he's alone, as soon as he is alone with his thoughts, his mind is just obsessed with this creature, this figure that has been following him.
Yeah, you can hear this sort of low growl as you like make your way down the stairs, and then it's like drowned out by the and like people like singing and dancing and like the clinking of cups and things like that, and you cannot hear it anymore.
And this is this figure, this visage is something that has always been with Balthazar since his resurrection, but the deeper into orc territory they get, and the more magic that Balthazar uses, the more prevalent this stalking figure has become. He's seeing it everywhere in his dreams, out of his dreams. It is becoming a plague to him.
So you can enjoy your evening as best as you can manage into the night, and dawn comes all too early, as it always does, particularly when you have indulged a little bit, and you'll awake with a squint as like the sun shines in through the window, and you can hear the mosquito at your ear, Vasco. You can slap it away, and are rudely awoken, and the jungle stands before you.
For sure, Vasco wouldn't have drunk heavily. He knows 10 days journey is no joke. And he's glad that they took this time to get one last night's comfortable sleep. He dresses quickly, puts on his armor, and he marches outside to wait for the others. Deep breath of dawn air in his lungs.
Yeah, I think Garak, though he sought out this, smokable herb or whatever, probably had a fairly early night. Whenever he's smoking, it's probably less of a social thing and much more of like a reflective, calming down kind of thing. So he did that and then turned in. So he's up pretty early and down at the corral or stable, wherever Tuvarok has been allowed to kind of stay. And he's been busy in the morning kind of getting him ready and saddled to go.
Yeah, Tuvarok can sense that there's something happening, and he's obviously excited about it. He's been like sitting in this town for more than a day, and it doesn't suit him. And also people give him a very wide berth, and there's no horses next to him, and so you can see that like people have crammed horses on the other side of the road, but like away from Tuvarok just in case. And yeah, he's excited to get going.
Balthazar would wake after the other two, heading downstairs, fully prepared to get an earful from Vasco for sleeping in even just a few minutes. He grabs his gear, and his hand lingers on the hilt of this blade, this new sword that he has been carrying, with the intertwining serpents comprising the hilt and the guard. And he would slide it free of the scabbard, looking at this sort of rippled steel that is obviously very old but still in pristine condition, with a edge as sharp as any sword he's ever owned. And he's sort of looking at his distorted reflection in this blade, seeing how different he looks just over the last few weeks after losing his arm and being in this jungle. Just the lines deepening of his face, graying at the temples of his hair. And he would snap the sword back into the scabbard, and sort of sling it across his back, and then head downstairs, stepping into the muddy streets. And he would probably spot Vasco standing there taking a deep breath. He would come up and nod to his commander and say, "Ready to go."
Before you, it seems. Vasco looks out on the open road before them. He's going to turn and he's going to look to the half-breed and say, "You should go ahead. You shall take point as we march."
And today it is just the three of us. And Tuvarak, of course. Yes?
It is.
Very well.
We will be straying close to threatening territory. We need to ensure that our presence goes unnoticed.
I think that is wise. We should be ready for trouble. It seems that it follows us wherever we go, and now we march headlong into it. We are for certain to find it. But the day is young, so we go. And he kind of nudges Tuvarak and heads off towards the direction that they were indicated that the mausoleum was in.
As they walk away, Vasco looks to Baltasar and says, "Every miner needs a canary." Gives him like an evil smile and then starts following at a distance.
Balthazar would just look at you with a non-expression, just a completely placid looking face, unamused at the statement. And as we walk forward, I would catch up to Garrock and Tuvarak as they're heading out. And I would reach into my pack and I would pull out an item that I forgot I bought, but that is fairly useful at this point. And I would hand you a horn, like a signal horn, blow into it horn. And I would hand it to you, Garrock, and I would say, "If you get into trouble, let us know."
Thank you, friend. I appreciate it. And promise you will hear from me if I need you.
Let us hope you don't have to use it.
Both, I think we both feel that sentiment.
So you can begin your journey out of Paletree, north and east into the jungle. And it's, as it always is, immediately upon like 20 minutes into the journey, sweat. Wearing armor and walking is a nightmare, usually. And in the jungle, it is hellish. Like the various layers of padding that you have and the clothes underneath and the various layers of chain and then plate. It is so hot under the armor and the sweat is running in rivulets down your face only an hour or so into the march. But you're actually kind of familiar with this part of the jungle at this stage. You've been through it several times and you know most of the ins and out of this sort of area, and you can like make your way pretty safely for the first day. You'll just walk past some familiar sights. You'll walk past that strange fungus-like man who's like frozen against the wall that you had taken the sword from. And you'll continue for the best part of that day and the next day. Bored, honestly. It's loud, as it always is in the jungle. It rains. You have to find shelter during that rain. And sleeping is difficult because of the many millions of crawling insects everywhere. But beyond that, it's tedious. But on that third day is when you, Garrock, would hear in the distance this like exhausted panting.
He'll definitely slow his progress at that point and kind of look back over his shoulder just to see if he can discern how far the other two are back away from him before he does anything else. But if he's relatively comfortable with how far back they are, then he will very quietly try to make his way closer, putting as much like fauna or the flora between him and this noise as possible.
Sure. I reckon they're probably somewhere between 50 and 100 feet behind you, generally, if you're like scouting ahead. And you can like move, and it's quickly that you realize You can like see broken branches above, and then you can see like lying, like crushed over several broken trees. There's this huge reptile with a broken leg. It's enormous. It's got this massive head with like teeth the size of your hands. It's a king of predators, but it's got a broken leg, and there's like a bad smell coming from it, and you think it must have been here for a few days. It looks sort of gaunt and thin, and it's just breathing slowly, but it's obviously unable to move.
So he'll dismount and carefully from the back of this beast where it can't see him, he'll kind of stalk forward, producing some rope from his backpack, and kind of slowly uncoiling, lengths of it as he moves forward. And he's going to try to make his way towards the beast's head. As long as it doesn't make any kind of aggressive motion towards him, he'll approach all the way to the mouth, and then he's going to try to bind the thing's maw with the rope so that it can't bite.
Yeah, it'll look with like its one beady eye that's like above, the other is like right in the dirt. It'll like look in your direction sort of briefly, although you'll see it doesn't even have enough energy really to keep that up, and it'll just return to...
Yes. Keep on. I am not here to hurt you. And he kind of gingerly wraps this, finishing it with the knot. And then he'll turn towards the leg and try inspecting it to see if there's anything that he can really do.
Yeah, it looks like the thigh bone is like broken, like snapped, and it's like out at a bad angle. It's also like a huge bone compared to like anything that you would be used to. And you think that there's an infection there probably by the smell, and that it's gone bad already, like something from the bone is like leaking into the blood, something like that. You think there's probably not much that can be done without like Brother Diego's help, for example.
And there's a moment where Garok's hand kind of goes to his pouch where there's a new weight, this bottle that was given to him by Gulta, his friend, and he kind of halfway pulls it out of the pouch, looking at it, realizing that it's curative magic, and it would save this beast's life. And he kind of shakes his head, weighing the obvious options before sighing and just kind of tucking it back away, and then kind of just patting this thing's side. I am sorry. Do not think that I can help you. I think he'll look for a soft spot and try to end this thing's pain.
Yeah, it's probably around now that the other two would arrive, and you would like see what I had described, this enormous dinosaur like lying with a broken leg, and Garok patting it.
Was that thing's leg broken before you found it, or did we just miss the battle of the century?
No, I cannot claim felling this beast. He was like this when I found him. I think it has been broken for some days now. It is turned rotten.
Never seen anything like this. It's impressive beast.
It is a monster, to be sure. But I do not think there is anything to be done for it, unfortunately.
Not without wasting precious supplies. We should
kind of moves towards the
send
thing's
it on its
eye.
way.
Yeah, he kind of moves over towards where the thing can see it, can see him. And he produces that same jade knife. And he kind of, strokes the thing's face just once or twice. You will know. Rest now, friend. And he'll just kind of reach down and draw the jade knife across the thing's throat. Try to end it quickly.
Yeah, it's hard going. The scales are thick, but the jade knife will cut through, and you can do so. It doesn't even struggle or even let out a cry. There's just this sort of resignation, and in minutes it will bleed out.
Gilrock will look for a talon or something, a memento to take from this beast, and add it to the decorative things that he wears about himself.
Yeah, it's got these enormous teeth that you can make knives out of or spearheads if you're that way inclined, and the talons on its toes are enormous.
Yeah, nothing that will hold them up too much, but he'll spend 15, 20 minutes or whatever to remove one of these things and then be on their way.
How big is this thing, Lloyd? Like, are we talking 20 feet long or?
The T-Rex.
Oh, right. Because I couldn't really work out what it was. Vasco's looking at this thing in awe, and he looks to Garrock and he says, "Is there anything that we can take from this beast that would perhaps be a deterrent for other predators in this jungle? Perhaps if we strew its piss all over our campsite, and nothing will approach."
Yeah, I was gonna say he disappears down between this thing's legs for a moment, and then comes back out with this large bladder and kind of thrusts it into Vasco's arms. Be my guest.
I didn't say give it to me, you fucking. And you can see he visibly goes and sort of gags on the smell of it. And then he's going to thrust it to Balthazar.
Balthazar is sort of standing there with his arm sort of, and he holds his one hand up, just like, I can't hold this. And he sort of pushes it back towards you a little bit, Vasco, and he says, "What a pleasant job we have here in the jungle."
Resigned Vasco stubbornly marches over to your faithful steed, Garrock, and he's going to tie it to your saddle.
Rock has to kind of rush over there and calm Tuvarok down. No, it's fine. He's like that with all of us. It's fine.
Yeah, you think that Tuvarok is nervous at the smell, and also of the creature, even though it's dead. He has been reluctant to enter into the clearing.
And go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
So where Garrock is kind of standing there, kind of trying to placate Tuvarok a bit, he is looking at this creature himself as well. And he shakes his head and calls to the others. If this is the kind of thing that wanders around this part of the jungle, we should stay close together, I think.
I think that's probably a good idea. And Lloyd, I don't know what kind of check this might be, but is there any way that I can maybe just spend a couple minutes inspecting this body, and particularly the wound that it has, and see if this is something that sort of befell this creature, like it was an accident, or does it seem like it was attacked by something?
Sure. Yeah. Investigate or medicine, either one of those.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do... Oh, they're both 0 for me, so that's great. Oh, 17 on the die, so 17.
Yeah, it actually looks like an accident. It looks like it might have just tripped or landed poorly and broken its leg. It doesn't look like there's no other wounds on the creature. It looks like this just happened by accident and it stumbled and couldn't move anymore.
I would sort of report this to my comrades, letting them know that this seems like it was just an accident, that there's not something potentially bigger than this out there that did this to it. And I would sort of say under my breath, death finds even the mightiest of creatures, no matter what. This thing probably lived for decades in this jungle, and one wrong step, here it is.
Let us hope it is not a pack breed.
Well, the chances are that with the stink of this wound and now the fresh death, we will not be the only ones in this clearing for very long. I think we should move.
Agreed.
And so you do. You continue, and that night can rest easy. Although the stink of dinosaur piss is pretty harsh to deal with, you notice that like even the like almost every night you'll have like little lizards and stuff like crawling through your camp, sort of harmless, but they don't come near at all, and you're able to like rest easy for the next 2 nights as you travel through the jungle. And even through the day, nothing will really bother you, but there is a point when even that enormous bladder runs out. There's a lingering sort of stench that will hang around. And every day there's just that noise of the jungle, the constant screeching of apes and the croaking and ribbiting of frogs and the countless noises of insects and birds. Everywhere that you go, there's always noise. It's never quiet. And you enter into this clearing a couple of days later, and you can see this bird of paradise with this like very fancy plumage, like silver and red, and it's like up on a branch, and you can see it's like doing this sort of dance. It's like waving feathers in this way, and it's like doing this little mating ritual that you can see, and it like turns briefly to look, and then it turns towards you and like lands down in front of you, Vasco, and it does this dance at you.
Could this be a spy of the enemy?
I think you have a new friend, Vasco.
Away, beast.
We call those birds.
Bird beast.
It's like doing this dance, like hopping side to side, and it's like showing it's like silver feathers and it's red ones, and it's like looks like it's trying to show you up.
Oh, look, it's like you.
And you can see that you two are wearing mostly silver with like red underneath.
Well, if it insists on placing itself in my path, it would be rude not to serve it for dinner this evening. And he makes a move towards the bird.
Yeah, it'll fly back up into the branch, but it'll follow you for the next hour or so. Like you'll be like walking, and you'll see it in your eye line again, and it'll be doing the dance again, trying to establish dominance. But it's this endless noise as you like continue traveling through the jungle until like on the 4th day, in the middle of that day, you're like walking, and then there's just like this no noise. All the insects, all the frogs, all the birds, everything goes quiet. And you can hear this and see this like rustling of branches overhead.
Garak is definitely pulled up short on the reins of Tuvarok. Whoa. And he kind of holds up his hand to the others. Listen.
Tuvarok has his tail firmly between his legs and is like sort of in a submissive posture.
We crossed some kind of territorial line. We are in a new place. You should tread lightly. Stay close. He'll kind of press on, his head on a swivel now.
It only lasts for about a minute or two. This silence, and you can feel, and like a couple of leaves will like slowly sort of wind down onto the jungle floor, and then it's back. All the noise, all the insects, all the birds, as if whatever that thing was just like passed over you and is gone now, and the jungle sound returned.
Gulta, any idea what that could have been?
I something, some kind of predator, I think. Something watching us. But I did not see anything. Seems to have passed on for now, at least. But we are being watched.
You can continue, and another day, another night, and a week into your journey, you're like sitting in your camp, resting, tired, soaked. Everything you own is soaked. You brought like several change of clothes because you know what it's like in the jungle. But there's never time to dry anything. It's always wet. It's always humid. It's always raining, and so everything you own is soaked. Your like feet are shriveled. From wearing like soaking wet boots all day. You're like sitting in the camp and resting and trying your best to relax, and you can hear this like ribbit, and then another, and then another, and then suddenly there's just this shower of frogs that like moves through your camp. They're all just like hopping. There must be hundreds, if not thousands of them, just like running through your camp and like leaping. They're all tiny. They're all like these bright colors. You've got like bright oranges and reds and purples, and they're just like going through your camp, and there's this like insane cacophony of like all these like frog mating cries, which, you know, to them sound terrifying, but to you are just like little chirps as they go by. I need each of you to make a dex save, please.
A dirty 20.
18.
13.
Okay, so they're leaping through, and maybe Balthazar, you're the last one to notice. And one of them like leaps up onto your shoulder, and then bam, bounces off your face, and then and continues. And they're just passing through all these frogs, like thousands of them, until finally, like, there's a few stragglers that like come at the very, very end, and they're gone kind of as quick as they came, like maybe a minute. There's just frogs bouncing through your camp. That night, Balthazar, you start to feel unwell. There's like a nausea that comes across you, and like a fever. And you will dream heavily. You'll have these very intense experiences, and you will see what that creature was, you think, and it's this were creature, this half man, half panther thing that like crawls through the top of the canopy, and it watches, and everywhere that it goes there is silence. All of the creatures of the jungle, they bow their heads and they are silent as it passes, and you are like watching this, and then you are the thing, and you're like crawling through the top of the canopy, and you can see all around. Everything, like from the ants up until the giant reptiles, everything bows its head as you pass over.
That next morning, do I still feel pretty crummy the next morning?
Yeah, woozy.
Yeah. So I would come to and probably be the last to wake. Sweat still shining on my face. I'm very pale, pallid looking, and I would take a long swig from my water skin. Anyone else have weird, vivid dreams last night?
No, but it seemed like you were not feeling yourself. You were restless, calling out.
I think I ate something or drank some bad water or something. I'm just not feeling tip top. This may sound odd, but I think I know what was. I think I know what was above us the other day. The thing that made the jungle go quiet like that. It was some sort of panther creature, not like the one from before, the one with the one that was blurry, not like that one. Something more. It's, and I would sort of looking at probably the expressions on Garak and Vasco's faces. I would just go, it's It's foolish. I'll just forget about it.
And you can see this like bird lands behind Vasco and like looks around in the way that birds do, and then it does this like sweeping courtly bow and then is gone again.
I think Garak would actually kind of kneel down on his haunches in front of Balthazar and say, Are you having visions?
Define vision.
You were not awake last night to find any tracks or anything to notice the creature that was following us yesterday. But now you awaken with the sweats, the restless sleep, and you have clarity about you. I've seen my mother do this before. Not quite the same, but she had the same look in her eyes, the wonder and the fright.
Balthazar would take another long swig from his water skin and maybe even dump some of it on his face to try and cool himself off. And he would look at Vasco. How is Vasco reacting to this conversation?
He's looking at you with absolute disdain as you take a long swig of drink, and he just looks around for a second, almost exasperated with his own sarcasm. He's just sort of just got his hands wide. We have enough threatening our lives in this jungle as it is without imagining more. What is in your dreams will not harm you. This is the way of things.
That is a very foolish way to think of things. There are many in our dreams that can hurt us in real life. Sometimes even things that we do ourselves because of what we dream.
Balthazar would sort of sigh, and the human side of him would win over the whatever part of him is orc, the part of him that was resurrected. He would say, no, the Lord Commander is right. Whatever I'm dreaming, however real it might seem, it's we have enough to worry about.
I saw something at that tower where we stopped. There is something here in this jungle.
There is.
It hunts all of us, I think, but you especially, Golta.
And I would pause, take another swig from the water skin, put the cork in it, sling it over my shoulder, and I would grab the blade beside me and sort of shakily stand up, maybe even accepting a little help from Garak to stand up. I'm fine, thank you. I would sling the sword over my back. There is something out here. It's not something we can deal with right now. But we just need to tread lightly.
After having kind of helped him to his feet, Garak kind of leaves his hand on his shoulder for just a moment and says, and whatever it is not something that you should deal with by yourself. When the time comes and you face this, do not do it alone.
Garak, I think that's the only way I can deal with it.
He'll return to Tuvarok and mount up.
You can continue through the jungle. And it seems to become calmer, actually. And there's like less in your way, and it becomes quieter. And you find that the jungle becomes less thick, particularly on this 10th day. It starts to like space out quite a bit, and it looks like deliberate in the construction of the jungle. Like the trees are in lines, and you can see that there are like streams that flow in certain directions. You'll start to notice like flagstones, and then like out of nowhere, you'll just like be walking in the jungle, and then you'll take another step, and there is no more jungle, and there is before you a pyramid, 300 feet tall. Around it, there are flagstones that have like been overgrown and like are cracked from like centuries or millennia of rain and of growth. Although once you think this would have been perfectly flat and like engineering at a scale that you haven't even seen at like last light, or like places that are the sort of shining examples of what man can make in the nation. There are steps leading up the front of this pyramid, steep, about 250 feet up, and at the top of it there's a small sort of like building, and at the top of that there is a pyramid of solid gold, it looks like, that shines like the sun as you look at it. It must be 10, 20 feet across. It's hard to gauge at this distance. And like as you look, it's as if the sun itself is on top of that pyramid. You'll notice too, as you like enter, that there is silence here. There's a little bit of like, you can hear echoes from the jungle, but there's none of the sort of insane chittering and squawking that you would hear usually.
As Garak kind of rides out into this clearing a little, he slows at the sight of this mammoth structure. And then he notices the lack of the den, and he kind of turns and looks directly at Balthazar to kind of see if he might be feeling the presence of whatever it is that's been shadowing him.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask Lloyd if this pyramid looks similar to the one that the smoking mirror showed me in that initial vision, when it asked me to bring him that ruby.
Similar, but not identical. There is a definite similarity in the construction. It's like a four-sided, I guess all pyramids are four-sided. And it's got this like stairway in the middle that leads straight up to the top, where there's like a flat part, more like a ziggurat than a pyramid. And there's no red beating gem at the top of it, which is what you had seen. There's like this sun instead.
Yeah, I was going to say that would probably be the chief difference, is just the top of it. And so I would, as I see that it's a different pyramid, I would sort of have a look equal parts relief and disappointment wash over my face. And I would catch Garak's gaze and just kind of nod to him like, it's all good. I'm fine.
There's no rope leading up along those stairs. They are very steep and they look quite small. It looks like a dangerous enough climb.
So do we try to ascend to the top, or do we ride around to look for an opening? This is a bizarre structure. I've never seen anything like this before.
How high up did you say it was, Lloyd?
So up to like the structure on the top, where you can see
Yeah.
that there's like an altar and like a door, 250 feet off the ground.
Whew. Ain't no magic gonna get me up there, so we gotta hoof it.
Like it might be the biggest structure you've ever seen. Thinking about it, like in the nation, I don't think they have. Maybe Last Light and the walls, but it wouldn't be that tall. This is baffling.
About how large on a side is it at the ground?
That's a good question that I don't know the answer to.
Like hundreds of feet? Or
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, then he's definitely not going to be just heading out to ride around the circumference on his own.
Vasquez probably thinking the same, and he looks either side. Is there? No, he's going to look to his companions, and he says, "We must discover if there are how many entrances there are to this place. We need to know if there's only one way to get out once we go in. So he is just going to nod to them and say that we should walk around.
Sure.
So he looks.
Kind of.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, he's just going to look to Balthazar to see if he has any further suggestions.
So I absolutely will walk around the circumference of the pyramid and scout it out. While I'm doing that, Balthazar, his eyes close, and when he opens them again, his irises are black. And I'm gonna be casting Detect Magic with my Eldritch Invocations here. I'm gonna have it on for 10 minutes, and basically just in a 30-foot area around me, I'll be able to detect any magic that might be there.
Okay. So you begin like walking around the base of the pyramid, and you can see that like on each side there's a stairway that leads to the top. So every side has a stair that leads to the very peak of this thing. You would notice, I guess, that it's like flat all around, like it's been artificially flattened a long, long time ago. Though it's starting to like crack, and like many of the flagstones are broken, and there are like even some trees and stuff sticking out. But once this would have been perfectly flat, which like doesn't exist in the jungle, it's just like not a thing. Beyond that, your magic sight would see something, and you like look up the stairway. You would see sort of a lingering path that sort of snakes upwards in this sort of zigzag, I guess, pattern up the stairway.
I would definitely zero in on that and sort of follow this pathway all the way. And it goes all the way to the top with the structure and the altar up there. So I would sort of hone in on this, and I would halt the other two and say, there's something here, something leaving a trail up the pyramid. I don't know if it's a creature that took this path or something else, but it might be a way up the pyramid that's stable, secure.
Vasco just turns to look at Garrock and gives him a nod.
And the sides of this pyramid that are on either side of the staircase, they're like smooth angles from the top to the bottom?
They're sheer. Yep.
Okay. Catching the nod from Vasco and hearing the information from Balthazar, he'll dismount off of Tuvarok and, kind of pet him behind the ear and tell him to, stay around. Don't go too far. And he'll kind of turn and look at these stairs. I'm going to shake his head. I have never liked stairs very much. And he'll kind of sigh and start up them.
Okay. So you're going to have to tell him exactly where to step, Balthazar. Because what you'll notice is as he like begins and he like, you say, okay, start here. He'll go up a certain amount of steps, and then he like will miss one. And you, Garrock, will feel this like sense of vertigo. Like even though you're only 10 feet from the bottom, like as soon as you're like off that path, there's like this whoo, and you'll like start to feel ill, and you'll begin to like teeter back and forth.
Yeah, he kind of, the first sensation he'll kind of try to write off as just him trying to, overcome his own shortcomings with, heights or what have you. But the second or third time that it's happened, he kind of starts clicking that there's something going on. And his path is having to be corrected by Balthazar. He's going to turn and say, maybe you should go first and we can just follow you.
Balthazar would nod, knowing that that's probably the right call, and his hand would sort of stray absently to the stump of his left arm, and then he would just and I'll start scaling the pyramid steps, following this path exactly. And if it takes longer than 10 minutes, which I'm assuming it probably will, I will just cast Detect Magic again, so that I can keep an eye on that trail.
Yeah, you can follow it, and you'll notice that you feel like a sense of safety as you like are walking along these stairs, along this very specific path that seems to like snake, although not like a regular. There's like ups and downs, and you have to It's a very specific path. You have to like go down to get back up. And looking at it as a whole, you actually think that it looks sort of like a scripture, something like that. It looks like it could be if you were to read it vertically. It's too angular not to be. You know, it looks strange in that way, and you can follow it upwards. It's going to be exhausting climbing 250 steps in armor. So I'll need an athletics check from both of you who are in armor. As I assume Vasco will follow last.
I wear armor, but it's bone armor, but it is the equivalent of chain shirt.
So is that, yeah, it's not heavy, right?
Chain shirt is medium, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, you can make it with advantage.
Okay.
Athletics, I got a 23.
Yes. Okay.
Dirty 20 from me.
Excellent.
That's a 13 total, even with advantage.
Thanks. Okay. So maybe it's like your innate fear of stairs and the heights. Maybe it's not something you're used to. Maybe the people from the nation have been to more places that are high. And as you are making way up, the two of you who are in the heavy armor, you are used to that maybe now from 10 days of walking in the jungle. And you're able to follow this path, and you'll go up and then back down and then up again. And yeah, you could, if you took time, you could definitely scribe it onto a piece of paper or something like that.
Yeah, cool.
But Garrock, as you're climbing, you start to feel this burning in your thighs and in your back, and you start to literally use your hands as well to climb this stairway. So that's the case for the other two as well. Eventually, there's just too many stairs, and you're outside in the sun in this insane heat, and eventually you're just on your hands and knees climbing as best you can. You'll take a level of exhaustion though, Garrock, your favorite. As you climb, it takes you the guts of half an hour to maybe an hour to get to the very top. And you can see then at the top, just jungle everywhere, in every direction. It's probably the highest anyone's ever been among you. And you can see all around this crazy jungle that spreads out almost infinitely. But you can see dotted around the place other pyramids sticking out of the jungle. Above the canopy here and there, and you can see in the distance to the north one that has a red glow from the top. Most of them have these sort of golden glows. You can see that red to the north. You can also see to the east of where you are, where the various rivers join, this enormous lake, and on top of it, the city of the Tekwani orcs, the orcs who live here deep in the jungle. They have this great city that's built up these various steps on top of this lake and these very many islands.
I'm going to super meta suggest that we maybe take a short rest up here and take the time to map out these pyramids, even just their relative sort of distances from each other, and maybe give Garrock a chance to lose that level of exhaustion.
Yeah. Garrock, once he gets up there, is kind of sitting down because he doesn't trust his legs anymore, especially atop this mountain that they have climbed. And he has made sure that he's nowhere near the edge looking down anymore. Just looking out across the jungle is enough for him. And as he's trying to kind of get his stomach to settle a little, he kind of looks around. There are so many of them. Are we certain that we have found the right one?
I guess there's no way of knowing beyond that. Trusting you as a guide, Garrock. We received instructions from the eccentric man, and these pyramids are spaced out far enough that you would have had to have really screwed up for us to be at the wrong one.
He kind of leans away from Vasco. It's not unheard of.
Vasco. And Balthazar wouldn't be able to hide his chuckle. He would laugh pretty heartily at that.
You can see Vasco's actually been quite interested in the fact of them being able to draw a map with all these landmarks. He's actually comforted and boost his confidence is given a boost by the fact that they have these markers to judge their travel by, something they've not had in their rainforest expeditions to this point. So despite the joke, he maintains a good mood and looks with interest as the map is drawn up.
So at the top here, you can kind of walk around the platform. There's this building at the top here that stretches up for another maybe 40 feet. And at the top of that, there is the actual pyramid of gold. Though up here, you can see that it's not solid gold. There is like a gold covering to what looks to be stone underneath. Unfortunately, it's not going to be like 20 cubic feet of gold. That would have been pretty nice. But maybe not even the precursors of that kind of wealth. But you can like walk around the top and you can see that there is but one door. This great door, worn smooth by rain, that you can see kind of the remains of what looks like a carving there. Barely make out what looks like a man sort of shape, but has a sun for a head with this like sword clutched between. And then at the base of the door, like 10 feet down from the rest of the door, there is this image of like a man kneeling and an orc kneeling and then a man kneeling and then an orc kneeling all in a line.
Balthazar would find this interesting, and he would scrape away sort of the vines and stuff that have sort of overtaken this structure, revealing that depiction of men and orcs worshiping this figure together. And he would maybe catch Garok's attention and point it out. Our people have not always warred. You see?
Yes. Whoever this being is, the one with the sun for the face, must have been very, very powerful to get man and orc to bend their knees.
Jungle trickery.
Perhaps. This has been here for a very long time, I think.
Longer even than any of the noble families of the nation. The structure has been here for a long time. My theory is that each of these structures is devoted to a different god.
Maybe you're right. That could stand to reason.
I would sort of look at Vasco and say, it might trouble you to think of this, but we might find echoes of our past in this pyramid too. Pieces of our ancestors.
This is heresy, and it will be treated as such. When we have completed our work here, we shall ensure that the nation can reach this place and scrub it of its false scripture and pictures. He hunts for the word.
And its wealth, no doubt.
Well, of course.
Anything that we can't carry out of here. You should take comfort, Vasco. Men once ruled this place alongside orc. There's a precedent for us to conquer this land.
And conquer we will. The door. And he looks to the door and he waits for the other two to do something.
I will, again, close my eyes, open them. My iris is turning black like obsidian, and I will inspect the door closely.
Yes, there is some sort of enchantment here on the door. Yeah, enchantment is a skill that you would see, and it seems to lock this door.
I do have a spell that might be able to help us, but we should maybe try some other stuff first before I use a slot, because I only have 2.
Yeah, Garok will kind of notice that Balthazar's eyes have done this, and I'm sure it's probably not the first time that he's noticed it before. I don't think it's something that you necessarily keep hidden. He's going to kind of look at him, and when he sees the furrow of his brow, what do you see?
There's magic around this door. Does the aura, does the color and the sort of the shape of it, Lloyd, look similar or different to the trail that we followed?
Yeah, probably similar. You think it's like the same source?
Right. So I would, and that's comforting to me because the magic that we followed was obviously a boon to us, and so I would tell Grok that the trail, the aura that we followed up the steps, it continues here around this door. It seems to be sealing it shut, though. I might be able to manipulate it open, but it might take time, energy.
Well, if we misstep here the same way that we misstepped on the stairs, it has not been too bad. The repercussions are feeling woozy. So that's not to say that it might be the same, but maybe. It's not a feeling that I am looking forward to experiencing again, but there are worse things. Maybe we should just try to open it.
Maybe we should. And at this time, I would hand Garruk the parchment that I drew the scripture on, and it's probably not 100% perfect. It's as best as I could muster. And I sort of show that to him, and I say, "This is what the trail looked like on the way up here. Does this mean anything to you? Does it look like anything?"
Probably not, Lloyd, I would imagine.
I don't even know if Garrett can read.
Probably not. At least not well.
Though it doesn't have the look of Orcish script. Those like pieces of Orcish script you would have seen that like maybe the female shamans can read and write. It doesn't look like that. It's more angular, and like it also like is not in a similar shape or form to like the language of the nation. Looks alien, ancient.
No, nothing about this looks familiar to me. It is almost like a snake or a river, but...
Well, if nothing else, our benefactor might pay handsomely for something like this. And I would roll it up and tuck it away safely. All right. Door. What do you do with the door? Do we push it open, pull it open? Knock?
Are there any kind of rings or anything on the outside of it?
No, there's just an inscription of the men and orcs kneeling and of the sun-headed sword bearer.
Maybe we kneel, man and orc together.
I am willing to try it, for sure.
I would, I see Rob has stepped away, but I would,
Yeah, I imagine Vasco is like looking away and this is a quiet conversation.
Yeah, I would sort of like maybe give Vasco a job. Like, hey, I hand him the map that we've been making, and I go, "Can you just double check and make sure that everything is situated?" And as soon as he sort of like goes off around the corner to do this, I would sort of go, "Okay, come here," and I would want Gurok and I to kneel in front of this door.
Yeah, Gurok will do so. He'll try to emulate the posture that he can see from the carving as best he can.
Perfect. So you put both your knees on the ground and you sit back and you raise both your hands and there's this door like opens and then there's just this of like dust and bones and like just like it's obviously been airtight in here for a very, very long time and there's just of all that stuff being shoved outside. We might just take a quick break there until Rob gets back. Yeah, grab a drink or whatever.
Sounds great.
We'll continue when he gets back. Right. You're up.
Hey man, sorry about that. My flatmate has been having pain sort of here all today,
Right.
and she thinks it might be her appendix, and
Oh, gosh.
we think it might have just gone. So I had to
Oh my
quickly
God.
Yeah, yeah. She was with a mate of hers who, and I think they're going to the hospital now. But I had to go and quickly see what had happened.
Yikes.
Yeah, so sorry about that. What did I
No,
miss?
it's fine. Don't worry about it. While you were gone, they gave you a job to like, hey, can you hold this map and like go to the other side? And then they knelt in front of the door and it opened.
Oh,
In pagan supplication, they knelt.
disgusting.
I loved so much how you were like, yeah, we'll just burn this place to the ground. Such a crusader mentality. Like
They need to start deforestation around here. If we want to control this place, we need to strip the orcs of their advantage.
I like the makeup that we have now where like Vasco is the voice of progress, where he's like, this is what we gotta do. Burn fine-grown forest, you know? Like
Yeah. For real.
now he has a mind of metal. And then like Garrock on the other extreme, and then Balthazar is literally in the middle of the two, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't like the pictures of the united men and orcs in supplication to this heresy.
Yeah, I definitely feel the sting of not having a fourth in the party, but at the same time, the build to the party is really interesting in a kind of strange balance right now.
I feel like we've got like three moralities that like are very close to each other, you know? So it works well.
Must be very uneasy for Vasco because at least he did have Diego with him to sort of back him up.
Yes.
With these two monsters, but
and I love the duality at play in this campaign setting, where the good civility is very close to being oppressive and evil, and
Yep.
and the savage, person is very typically seeking peace and fun twist.
It's just like looking at like a conquistador or a crusader sort of story, except like with a modern view, you know? Because when you look at those stories, you're like, oh yes, they went and saved the Holy Land, or like they discovered America. But actually, like I don't think that's what it was like for the people who lived there.
Nope.
It's interesting.
It is.
It's been a lot of fun to play with.
I got this. Actually, I got to shout it out because it's great. I got this doc on drive-through for free called. Gosh darn it, it's gone now. But it was just like this list of like hundreds of possible things you could run into in the jungle, which I thought were great. Like the Bird of Paradise was there, which I thought was such a cool encounter. Like so weird, so great. The wounded creature was in there, and then also the thing overhead that like silences the jungle. I thought that was so fucking spooky. It was great. So I'll put it in the description afterwards because it's really, really nice. And it's like system agnostic too.
It's funny because like if you've ever been out in the wild, the woods, jungle, wherever, where there is a lot of life and there's constant noise, you do eventually get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when there's an absence of it, it is very unsettling.
For sure. It
will make you completely and totally stop and be like, what's going on? Because it's spooky.
Yep. But it's like though, if you like live in the city or whatever and you're used to noise at night and then you go and stay in the country, you're like, where the hell is all the things? What's happening? And it's like so dark and stuff. You're like, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I grew up really close to the city as a kid, and then we moved further out into the suburbs around the time I was like 13. It took me probably a month and a half before I slept well at night.
Right.
Yeah. Just weird.
We're all creatures of habit.
Yeah, very much so. Especially with sleep.
Oh, yeah. Think Matt has fallen down the toilet, or what do you think's happened?
Possible. Yeah, he does also have a pregnant wife. So
That's true. Yeah.
he is
That is
beck and
true.
call 24 hours.
Oh yeah. Here we go. What time do you call this?
What's that?
What time do you call this?
I'm sorry, there were tacos upstairs. I had to get going. I feel like that's a pretty good excuse.
Yeah, I'll allow it. Okay, so Vasco, you like walked around the other side with this like map, and you're like trying to piece together like where the pyramids are and marking them on the sort of sketch you have of the area, and then you hear this, and then this, you see this massive like cloud from the other side of like dust and bones and stuff has just like shoved itself into the sky, and obviously the door has opened.
Where did it come from?
The other side of the top of the pyramid. So I imagine you're out looking in the direction you didn't come from, like marking things, and then yeah, you would hear this and then see the.
Yeah, and Panicky draws his great blade and rushes around the other side to see what they have done.
Garak is kind of like dusting himself off, like wiping a lot of this, sedimentary stuff off of himself. Don't look at me. It was his idea. He thumbs towards Balthazar.
Yeah, Vasco just like is wide-eyed, just like pointing his sword at you, and then slowly lowers it.
Doors open as requested.
Very good. Half-breed. On point.
And Garak will draw his spear and kind of mutter to himself, Garak, would you please go first? It's not hard. It's a very easy thing to say as he kind of starts down or through the doorway.
Yeah, there's a really immediate darkness. So like the light from the sun, like exactly the doorway will like shine down, but then beyond that, it's gone. Like it's very dark. So you can see even as you like enter on the sides of the walls, there are angular carvings like you can't even see up to the ceiling, but like floor to ceiling, just like these angular carvings, like the ones that you had taken from the stair. Yeah.
So Garak will walk in just out of the sunlight, and he'll stand there for a moment, letting his eyes kind of adjust, and his orcish blood kind of taking over and being able to adjust his eyes to the point where he can actually see in the dark up to 60 feet away.
Perfect. So then you can see down this corridor that extends either side. The ceilings are about 40 feet up, it looks like. And you can see this like scripture, like every side covering. It's very, very angular. It looks like it's all done in chisels, like all the way down floor to ceiling on either side of this corridor. And it continues down into like a T with like at the center of this T, there is a statue of this sun-headed thing. It looks like a man, though thinner and like longer, with like these pointed shoulders and like this sort of stylized sun for head and this great sword sort of shining between, like holding it here.
Does the stone look like it's made out of the same as the rest of the structure?
No, it looks very, very fine. You think most of the structure is made of like a coarse, like a sandstone, something like that maybe, while the actual statue looks to be made of like this gorgeous marble.
Yeah, he kind of is looking at these walls, and he says back behind him, this place is definitely holy, or it was at some point. I have never seen this much writing before, and only the holy places have writing. Look at this statue.
Vasco spits on the floor as he takes out a tinderbox and torch from his equipment and lights it. And begins just looking with distaste at all of these carvings and all of this imagery. And it just gives you a dark look.
And Garak kind of shields his eyes from the light of the torch a little, trying to not completely ruin the adjustment that they've made to the dark. We should tread carefully here as well. There were magics that Balthazar could see outside. The chances of there being other magics inside are very good, and they may not be as forgiving of your trespass.
And Balthazar would, curiously enough, also shield his eyes from the torch, as his eyes have also adjusted to the darkness magically. And he would look at Vasco and say, as much as I hate the idea of us putting distance between ourselves, Garak and I can both see in the dark. You can't. So it might be in our best interest for the two of us to scout forward and you to hang back at least a short distance.
Very well.
So you can move down to the end of this corridor and it turns left and right. You can see that, like you're right in front of the statue, to the right that there is a door, and to the left also. On the right, the door is like covered with this engraving, though not like ruined like the one outside. It hasn't been touched by the elements. And you can see very clearly a collection of figures. There's a man and there's an orc, but also there's like a man with a snake's head and a snake's lower half. There's like a sort of like lizard man type creature, and like some little runty orc looking thing, tiny in comparison to the others. They're all kneeling, and the other half of this like door is just this shining sun.
I would reach out and brush the fingers of my hand across these figures, straying for a while on the snake-headed figure. Now, because I've seen something like this before, and I can't remember exactly when or where, and then it sort of dawns on me that I saw creatures like these in a vision that the smoking mirror gave me. And I would kind of point to this snake-headed figure and look at Garak and say, I know these things. I think they dwell here in the jungle somewhere.
Some form of shapeshifter or a were creature?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think, Garak, you might know stories about the people who came before the orcs, that they were like reptilian and snake-like. And maybe that's what you thought the precursors were when you heard about it. Like, you would have thought it was these, but obviously that's not the case.
I've heard some stories of reptile people who came before the orcs, but here the orcs are beside them, and the snake people are not the ones who are being worshipped or bowed before. It is this creature with the sun for the head, the god, as I think you have pointed out.
A god or something close to it, yeah. Is this door similar to the one outside? It doesn't have any handle or anything like that, Lloyd?
This one does have a handle. It looks like it's open.
I would sort of look at Garak. Care to take a peek inside?
We have come this far, and I think if we do not find treasure, that one will be a little upset.
So you can open the door without any hassle. You can like wrap your hand around like the handle and pull it open. And inside you'll see this sort of small room. There's an altar at the end of it. And on either side, there's like these stone troughs, and they're filled with like cold, clear water that seems to be like bubbling in from somewhere. Beyond that, the altar shows this figure in more detail now. Taller than a man, with these like thin features, these pointed ears, an angular sort of sharp face, and also like some sort of beard dangling down from its chin. And it has this great sword that it holds before it, like in all the other images so far. And on the altar, there's a great deal of wealth, gold and silver, that is like arranged in these like very neat geometric piles. And there's also this black curved dagger with a red gem at the crossguard. You think, looking at it, Balthazar, that there's about 2,000 pieces of gold worth here.
Probably the only time I've seen a similar amount of gold was looking in the vault of my family before they disowned me. I'm taken aback for a moment at these riches, and I would I'll take a more sort of closer look just around the room, sort of looking behind corners and all that kind of stuff before I usher Vasco in with the torch.
So you would see that the water bubbles in from somewhere, but like it's at a sort of slope and it goes down to somewhere. And you can see this like trickle of water running from the ceiling like into the center of where the altar is. And like pouring through, though everything is like perfectly measured and there's no splash anywhere. Everything is exact, and even the way that like the gold has been left here is perfect. It's not like strewn about randomly. It's like in neat piles. Everything seems angular and geometric.
Garak is going to kind of approach where this water is dripping in, and he's just going to kind of cup his hand under the drip for just a moment and let it collect and pool in his hand, and then just kind of sniff at it and then taste it with his tongue just a bit.
It's delicious and clear and crisp and cold. Maybe meltwater or something. It tastes like filtered almost. If anyone had a clue what filtered water tasted like in the Middle Ages, like it's perfect and very refreshing.
This water is clean. It is worth almost as much as what is piled here.
Where is it coming from? And I imagine at this point, Vasco would maybe be coming in, and I would nod to him and say, even you have to admire the exactness of this room, Vasco.
Even enemies of the ancient days have cunning, I will grant you that. He looks at the accumulated wealth and at the water with distrust, and begins just combing the corners of the room, I think, just to see if there's anything else to find, but he remains quiet, listening.
Yeah, there's the gold and the dagger, the altar, the image beyond, and that's it.
Balthazar will fill up his water skin with water from that trickle.
Yeah, likewise. Garak is going to kind of eye the treasure with a little bit of, again, distrust, like Vasco said, and kind of sees the statue looking down, or the carving looking down. I am not certain about taking these offerings. I feel very uneasy about this.
We came here with a purpose, Garak. Our benefactor is not paying us. This is our payment. And if we're to secure a foothold here, we need funds. I don't like the idea of desecrating an altar, no matter the god. But this here is our payment.
Vasco looks to the weapon on this altar, and then he eyes the sword at the side of Balthazar. He distrusts it. He doesn't want similar threats to emerge from approaching a weapon left behind. So instead, he's going to stoop and he's going to start pouring the gold into sacks that I'm sure they would have brought if they knew.
Oh, yeah.
They were going here for money. Yeah. So
yeah, you can do so. It seems to be almost magnetically tied into stacks. So like when you go to like brush them, it like thunk down in like a pile, and then you can like, and once they come off the altar, they will like and like spread into the sack. But it seems like on the altar that they are like organized by some force. And you can like begin pouring them into the bag, and there's no sudden click or any sort of explosion. All is well. The dagger itself looks like it's like a ceremonial thing, though it does look very, very sharp. It looks to be made of like some sort of black metal or stone.
Garak, having grown a little more used to using a knife, he uses one in his daily life, but carrying the Jade knife, he's kind of considered using it a little more in more than just cutting things and skinning things. So he's kind of eyeing this dagger with potential interest.
Yeah, it's of incredible quality. You can see certainly the edge looks so fine that you can't even see it. It's, yeah, very well made.
Would anyone be opposed to me taking this dagger as a part of my claim?
Balthazar would sort of jerk his thumb back at the hilt of this sword on his back and say, "All yours."
Vasco just nods, not wanting to pick it up.
Then Garak will step over to it and then kind of cast his eyes upward, not fully meeting the gaze of this carving, but kind of eyeing it almost as if, you know, a judgeful parent. And then he'll reach out and take it quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the gaze is as stern as you can imagine the gaze being. Like if you were writing a dictionary under the definition of stern, this would be the look. It's just, it's unnatural. Like it's not human. It's something else, though it has a sort of familiar shape. You know, it's humanoid in its shape, but still there's something about it that is unsettling. And so you take the great amount of sacrificial gold and the dagger with it, and can leave this room.
Yeah, again, Vasco falls to the back, allowing those that can see in the darkness to tread the way.
The other door in this sort of corridor, you can see, has a carving also. There's this shining bright light. Again, this like sun-headed creature with a sword held aloft. And it stands atop a pile of bodies, it looks like. And mixed in those bodies, there are men, there are orcs, there are lizard people, snake people. There are these strange tentacled creatures with like bulbous heads. And there are like little tiny runty goblins, all sorts of strangeness. And atop it all, this sun creatured head, the sword up high.
This one much less welcoming.
It does not look like the peace lasted for very long. The question is, how do we bypass this one? Kneeling is easy enough to recreate, but this, I don't know.
Well, it's clear to me, Garak, that one of us must kill the other. And I would say this just deadpan, completely serious, and then my smile. I would just crack a smile. I can't hold a straight face.
Golta, it is funny now that it is done, but in the moment, he kind of just points towards Vasco. You know, it is a threat that I live with, so thank you very much for making me nervous.
I know. That's why it's funny. And I would sort of trace the figures on the door. And this door, Lloyd, does this have a handle as well? Or?
It does, yep.
Okay. I will go ahead and push it open.
You can do so. And beyond, you can see this room long. There are 6 pedestals. And there's this like thick dust or ash on the floor, something like that, like an inch of it maybe. And on each pedestal, there is like an item, something, some sort of treasure or trophy. The first is this like beautiful mask made of like an ebony wood and these like feathers and fur around the sides. Looks like a shaman's mask. Definitely something orcish by the look of it. You can also see this spear with a beautiful sort of haft of heavy oak and some sort of like shining, almost star metal tip. There's a small skull, like the skull of a child, though it's got like these sharp teeth that's fully plated in gold. There's a shield made of these huge, hard scales, a golden mask in the shape of a perfect human face, and a jar of glass. And inside, something small and purple wriggles.
Quite the trove in here as well. And I would look at these items with wonder and confusion, sort of just these relics of a different time and a different place, just things I'm wholly unfamiliar with. And I would step into this room, and I'm going to bend down and scoop up a fistful of this ash or dust, and I'd like to sort of smell it and let it run through my fingers and try and discern what it might be.
I will first need you to make a dexterity saving throw as you enter the room. It's got to happen sometime.
Man, the dice are with me tonight. So it's 18 on the die.
Actually, strength.
Strength?
Yep, sorry.
Okay, so it's a +1 save for me. So 19 total.
Okay. Let's roll some bones. Okay, so there's this sudden, and the ash forms into a hand that tries to snatch at you. But you're able to like step back out of the way, and then a second later, there's this like, and this like little ball of flame fires. I need you to make a dex save, please.
I was just joking about the fireball. Oh my god. Okay. Oh, 3 on the die, and I have a +0, so 3 total.
Okay. So though the hand doesn't hold you in place as designed, you like jump out of the way of that. This thing nonetheless hits you, and you like look, and then it just envelops you. You are going to take just way too much of this fire.
Vasco, you get my sword if I go down.
Thanks, man. I didn't want to bring it up right now, but I appreciate it.
It's probably going to be the only thing that survives.
Take my sword!
There's just going to be a pile of ash with a sword sticking out of it.
It'll actually just be your arm. It'll be the last thing that survives.
It's going to be 24 fire damage.
Holly, okay.
You are on fire and burning. You will take 4d6 at the start of each round. You are shedding bright light 30 feet as you are immolated. It's just, and you can see like inside the chamber, just this bright light and all of the metal shining as he's just like this enormous flame around.
Vasco's eyes sting like he's had this like this torch flame, and then all of a sudden full illumination as Balthazar is like a burning wicker man before them in the gateway. Does there appear to be any other movement other than flailing Balthazar?
That's it, except for this little purple thing in the jar at the end of the room.
I think looking around, is there anything that I can grab? Is there like a tapestry or something that I could grab to like fling over him?
There's not. It's literally like stone walls
stone,
and these pedestals. Yeah.
If I'm able to act, I would love to run back to the room with the water coming from the ceiling and stand under it.
Sure. Yeah. So you can like sprint, and look, there's this smoke in your lungs. You're going to take that fire. You'll take another 12 fire. And you like get there and you like shove your hands into the water and you're splashing it, and nothing is happening. The fire is not going out.
Sorry, did you say it's not going out?
Not going out.
So
Garak is going to throw his pack on the floor and take his bedroll off and unflail it as fast as he can, and he's just going to run and tackle Balthazar to the ground and try to smother him with this blanket.
You can do so. It catches fire immediately, and you like pull it away. You can see that Balthazar is still aflame.
You need to. Yeah, and Vasco's just staring. I mean, does it look like magical fire to him? Would he know what magical fire looks like, or?
I think so. You're a paladin. You're like familiar with the arcane. You would definitely think it's magic.
He screams about Azar as he's flailing, now on fire, and he's just going to shout, "Use your power! Cancel the arcane forces!"
Okay, if I'm able, I'm going to cast Dispel Magic on myself.
Gone. There's just like smoke from the various pieces of clothing that you have, but the fire is gone.
All of Balthazar's hair is gone. His eyebrows, the stubble of his beard, the hair on his head is just gone. Just horribly burned. And he sort of gestured intricately, summoning this black smoke that sort of enveloped him, and when it left, the fire was gone, and he will immediately sort of slump against the wall and slide down and just sort of be taking deep breaths through lungs that are likely scorched at this point.
The rock will, having wadded up the burning blanket into kind of a ball and just thrown it into the corner just to get it away from himself, will go over to where Balthazar is and kind of kneel down, kind of reaching out towards him, but not wanting to touch him anywhere because he realizes that would be incredibly painful. He's going to reach down to that pouch again and pull out the vial that he himself had handed to Garak back in town with this healing potion. Do you think that you can take this?
And I would just reach out and take it and pop the cork with my teeth and down it.
Yeah, through chapped lips, you're able to drink it, and immediately you can start to feel like the burning in your lungs at least subside.
That's going to give me 2d4 plus 2. So that'll be 8 total. So not a lot, but it's something. I sort of cough and chase that healing potion with a few gulpfuls of that clear, cold water that I collected in my water skin. And I would nod, thank you, to Garak.
Of course. Perhaps we have gone far enough. And he kind of looks to Vasco.
We've disturbed. Sorry, go ahead.
We still need to find what our benefactor is looking for, whatever it is, scripture, notes, books, that sort of thing.
There are some dark forces at work in this place. That hand nearly grabbed you. Had it been successful, I dare say we would not be on speaking terms right now.
I was foolish. I should have been using my sight. I would have seen the magic. I would have known not to step in the room. We can proceed. We just need to be cautious.
Do not berate yourself too harshly. You've been burned as it is, and he gives you a smile.
And Garak kind of stands off to the side, agape. Like, he doesn't get berated.
Vasco's having a miniature crisis in this place. Like, you wouldn't know this, but They're in the dark. He's the only one that can't see. They're surrounded by heretical artifacts and gold and fucking blood daggers and the like. Like, he's losing his shit, and he's just watched like the one who apparently knows what he's doing in these sorts of situations just get lit on fire. So he looks back towards the room and then says, "Do you think it was a one-time spell, or is it in constant effect?"
I can check, as long as it's not being clouded by something else. And I will sort of reach a hand up for Grok to help me up once again for the second time today. And I will stand up shakily, brushing soot from my armor. Luckily, the fire did not burn me too heavily, since I was wearing lots of clothing, lots of wet clothing, thankfully. So I will stagger forward, slowly sort of getting my bearings, and again, activate my detect magic, my eldritch sight, and I will peer into the room, giving it 5-10 feet of clearance.
Sure. So you can see that like there is an enchantment on that first stone that you have to step on if you're going to come into the room. Though it looks like that magic is faded, though it will convalesce again. Though you think, looking at it, that it will be hours before that happens. Beyond that, each thing on the pedestal gives off a powerful magical glow.
I look back and say, the trap seems to be dissipated for now. It will likely return again, but not for some time. Each of these items in this room is magical in nature or protected by magic of some kind.
Sorry.
Oh, you go ahead.
Garak, kind of looking down this hallway from outside the door, kind of thinks for a second, and then goes back to where the other side of the door was, where the relief was carved on the outside of it. And he wants to count the number of subjugated races that are in the corpse pile. Are
6.
there 6 of them? He says, there are 6 different kinds of people here, and there are 6 pillars in this hallway. These are artifacts or things that were brought from these different peoples, I think. I don't know what that tells us, but...
Yes. The mask looks orcish. That skull there, and I would point to that tiny gold-plated skull and then point to the tiny goblin figure on the door. Yeah, I think you're onto something, Grok. And again, I don't know what that tells us, but there is something to it. Do these just following a hunch here, Lloyd, but do these strike me as like trophies of conquest that are being stored here?
Yes, 800%.
Okay.
You think that each one is like an artifact of a race that's been conquered?
This being was not a god. It wasn't at first. It conquered these people. It conquered man and orc alike, subjugated them. These are trophies. These are scalps taken after a battle. Whoever these people were, these progenitors, these precursors, this land has always been drenched in blood since the beginning.
Seems as though it is a fate it cannot escape. He kind of carefully looks over towards Vasco, subtly.
They're cowards and they're relying on theatricality and cheap tricks. We can expect more of this ahead, and now we will be ready. He desperately tries to make a positive out of the situation, more for himself than anyone else.
So once again, Balthazar will step into the room, wincing slightly as he steps onto that first flagstone. And having nothing happen, he would step more confidently into the room.
Yeah, so as described, there's 6 different things. This ebony mask that looks like it's like an orc shaman mask. This spear, it's like ancient and it's made of like a meteorite maybe. There's the plated skull in gold. There's a shield made of hard scales, a golden mask in the shape of a perfect human face, and a jar of glass with some sort of purplish tadpole inside.
Do we take these trophies for our own, or do we leave them where they lie?
They're all magic or protected by magic, as I said.
Is that a specimen example? Something preserved? He looks at the tadpole.
It's moving.
Oh.
How could anything have survived in here for this long?
Vasco is going to take a knee, and he still has his sword in one hand, the torch in the other. He puts the sword point down on the ground, and he bows his head, and he's going to close his eyes. He's not going to eat it, as the chat suggests. He's going to cast Divine Sense to see if he can sense any fiends, celestials, or undead about this place. Is there some kind of necromantic energy keeping this thing alive?
So you don't sense any of those particular things, but there is necromantic magic around that particular thing.
Oh, so localized, nowhere else?
Around the jar, there is necromantic magic.
But anywhere else is 60
No.
feet range. Okay.
No.
I'm just saying.
No, totally. You should definitely hassle me.
Yeah, he looks to it and says some foul black art is keeping this thing swimming for thousands of years, likely.
I can conjure the same trick that won me this blade to try and pull something off of a pedestal.
Vasco immediately steps back as far away as he can. Doesn't even try and hide it. He's like, nope.
So, again, I do not think this is what the designers of 5th edition D&D intended Grasp of Hadar for, but I'm going to use an Eldritch Blast cantrip with Grasp of Hadar to try and pull something 10 feet off of a pedestal, or pillar, rather. So I think I'm going to... I'm gonna go for the human skull, or no, not the human skull, but the mask that is sort of shaped in the visage of a human man. I'm going to target that. I'm going to stand well far back from it. The range on Eldritch Blast is
It's like
120 feet.
Yeah, you're fine.
So I might actually, if I can target it from outside of the room, I might have everyone stand beyond the door outside of the room, and I'm going to try and pull it 10 feet off the pedestal using Grasp of Hadar.
Yep, you can do so. It's not moving, so with the amount of practice that you put in, you're easily able to pull it off the pedestal. There's no explosion, no giant hand. The mask will like fly about 10 feet and then clatter to the ground. You'll see that as it like bounces. But the outside of the mask definitely is like a beautiful, almost like idealized human face. On the inside, there is a different shape, a sort of more serpentine shape, like a snake face would fit in there.
Oh, I see. I will step into the room again, and I'm going to kneel down and pick it up.
Okay. Yeah, you can pick it up. It's lighter than it looks. It does seem to be solid gold. And on the inside, you can see, yeah, this like shape of what is supposedly, or looks like a snake. But as you like pick it up, it morphs into like a perfect relief of your own face.
Oh, killer. Okay. So I kind of like, I have this like amused look on my face, and I sort of like show it to Vasco and Garak with almost like a get a load of this shit kind of expression on my face, just very excited about this find. I've never seen anything like this before.
As he gestures with it, Vasco visibly recoils, like as he goes, "Look at this!"
And we see that it looks like Balthazar's face.
Yes, you do. Yep.
Yeah, Garak will kind of stare at it wide-eyed. That's very remarkable. Did it changed?
Yeah, like liquid, but it's solid. Like I said, each of these objects is magic. I'll sort of acting as if I'm not someone that was just immolated with arcane fire. I tuck the mask into my belt, and I will step forward and pull the spear off of the pedestal.
You can do so, and as you like wrap your hands around it, you can hear this. You get this vision of like men running. Some of them like on all fours, occasionally like with their knuckles, and one of them has this spear, and they're like chasing after this huge woolly creature with like, these massive tusks, and they're like chasing after it. And some of them are swinging from trees, but one of them like has this spear, and he like hurls it, and it hits the creature. And there's like this trumpet, and then you're back.
I'm sort of standing there gripping this spear with my one good arm. And I look back and I say, this is the artifact of men, I think. Not men like I've ever seen, tracking a beast I've never seen the likes of. I will actually hold it out to Vasco. This might be the oldest human artifact ever.
Yeah, Vasco just gives it an easy look, and he says, "What do you believe it? What do you believe its heritage is? How did it come to be here? Is this some kind of offering, or was it taken?"
I think all of these things were taken forcefully. These are all trophies of war.
Then we
We
should
are
take
reclaiming these objects, Lord Commander.
He nods with he's glad that you said that.
And I think there's something about this mask that has drawn Garak towards it. Obviously, it's different than any mask that he's seen, but I think there's probably some kind of similarities to it between something that his mother used to wear, being the shaman for her tribe. And he's gonna reach down and pick it up and kind of study it closer.
Drums, orcs running in the woods, in the jungles, on the plains, and always the person with this mask watching. Always, you can sense this bouncing from foot to foot, this like magical dancing, this like primal beat within, and you can like feel it, and then you're back.
The drums of my people, they course through this item somehow through time. I will take this, and he'll actually put it on.
Ooh boy! All right. Yeah, let me see what it does. I wrote it down somewhere. Yeah.
Oh shit, he's looking up rules for it. Oh my god.
Yep. So you put it on, and your eyes like shrink down and like expand again. You can see in all directions. You can see behind you. You can see above you. You can see underneath you. You can see in the dark further than you could normally, twice as far, even with like perfect detail. And you can see, if you like squint, this like a shadow world layered on top of this one. So mechanically, you can see in all directions. You have advantage on wisdom perception, dark vision up to 120 feet, and you can see invisible creatures and objects and into the ethereal plane.
Oh my god, that is amazing.
Yeah, I think Garak kind of stumbles backwards, maybe even bumping into one of the other pillars, kind of trying to adjust to this sudden influx of information. And he probably even like lifts the mask up a little bit and vomits on the floor before he kind of stabilizes himself and starts to just kind of bent over, breathing, leaning on his own knees.
Garak, you okay? I would kind of come over and put a hand on your shoulder.
Yeah, this is a very, very powerful mask. It changes the way that I can see the world. It's very hard to describe. It just made me very sick to my stomach, very nauseous. But I think I will be okay.
Okay.
And he'll put it back on.
So I sort of bring my satchel around and widen the opening. And now that I know that these things aren't going to kill us, I move to each of these items one by one and grab them and put them in my pack.
So you don't get any other visions from any of the other items. Though you noted that like Garak had one when he picked up the orcish and you had one with the human. You can like put them into your pack. They all have powerful magic emanating from them. Are you going to take this tadpole?
Oh, I was going to say I'll probably skip the tadpole. I'm sort of, I leave Vasco. He's sort of inspecting it. I'm going to let him make the call on that. But I am going to try and get Vasco to take the spear.
Yeah, he's in a stunned silence at the moment.
Yeah, he just can't even right now.
Can't handle it. Okay, so you can like grab these trophies of ancient conquest and put them into your various packs and make your way from this room.
Oh, there was a shield too, wasn't there?
Yes.
I will kind of I'm going to try and get Vasco to take that too, because I feel like that'd be awesome.
Okay, so you take the various things. Did you put on the mask? No, you just held it, right?
I just held it. I'm definitely going to put it on at some point, but
yeah,
not yet.
Okay, so you can make your way back out into the corridor. Now, on either end of this like corridor, there are stairs leading down, and they seem to lead down. Actually, you would see now with your insane vision, Garak. They lead down at least as far as you can see. And they spiral around like a hole. There's no railing or anything. Like you could easily just fall down into that center.
And it goes down beyond my capability of seeing.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a very, very long way down here. We should be careful. These stairs are steep, like the ones on the outside, but I fear a fall here would kill us. So Vasco should go first. No.
Yeah, I push Vasco into the hole.
We might have to take another break and wait for Rob to return. Just real quick, because I think we can't really go on without him, right? So we'll give it 2 minutes and we'll be right back. So that's a robe of eyes. Most of it, anyway.
Nice.
Like, I've never seen that before. I was like looking through the thing today, the DMG, and I was like, man, some of these items are great, like really weird. That one's super spooky.
There's
weird.
a lot of cool, weird magic items. Have you looked at any of the? I can't remember what they're called. Are they called common magic items in Xanathars, Lloyd?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh my god, they're like magic items that don't do anything like super useful.
Right.
It's like a cloak of billowing that just billows on command. Like it just billows around on command. There's like just all kinds of dumb but awesome little thematic stuff.
I'll have to look at that. That sounds really good.
It was an awesome one that I fell in love with from Pathfinder. It's like a brooch of the campfire or something. It's like this.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
And the only thing that it does is whenever you speak the command word, it becomes a bonfire or a campfire, and then when you speak a different one, it goes back to being a brooch. It's a really useful, but very
I love stuff like that.
Item.
Now I'm looking through these. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, a shield of expression. It's a shield with a face on it, and as a bonus action, you can change the expression that the face has on the shield.
I'm looking now as well. Some of these are great. This is a dread helm that makes your eyes glow red when you wear it. It's great.
Yes. There's a key too. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a key that has like a 10% chance of opening any lock. And as soon as it actually opens a lock, it disappears. So it's like a one-off, like 10% chance it's going to open something.
Yeah, these are great. I'm looking through them now. Just some clean armor. That's nice.
Yeah. There's armor that's like smoking too. It just constantly has smoke coming off of it. They're like they're cosmetic items. They're like cosmetic DLC
Yeah.
for D&D.
Like a loot box.
Yeah, it's like this doesn't do anything to make you better at the game, but it makes your character look really cool.
There he is.
There's our Lord Commander.
I'm sorry, guys. That was annoying.
Okay.
It's funny, Rob, because I could see when you came back, I could see that you had been running your hand through your hair a lot. Work.
Oh, so frustrating. I'm going to leave OBS off for the time being. I think something happened. I don't know what. What did I miss? Sorry.
When did you drop? Garak picked up the mask, put it on. Saw in all directions, saw in various planes of existence, threw up, understandably. And then Balthazar basically took the rest of the items. He left the tadpole jar there, and he was offering to you both the spear and the shield, I think.
I think for the time being, it's just a case of getting this stuff out of here so we can divvy up later. Vasco will take his share of the load, and I will absolutely tell you those things for now.
Okay, so then there's also these stairs that lead down on either side of this corridor. These like great sort of spiral staircases. There's no rail or anything, and there's just like this hole that like goes all the way down, at least 120 feet. So there's one on the right side of the corridor and one on the left side.
And Garak has kind of informed you guys that this hole goes down as far as he can see, but he hasn't even actually looked down the staircase. His face hasn't turned down the staircase at all. He's just looking straight at you and telling you that it goes down that far.
I mean, Vasco's going to look over, but I doubt he can see as far as the others can, even with the torchlight. He's going to actually, you said there's the hole.
Yes.
He's going to take out one torch because he's currently got 5. So he's going to light another one and he's going to drop it down the hole to see how far it goes.
Takes a couple of seconds. I don't know how like able you'd be to judge it, but no. Maybe you can make me a perception check to try to figure that out.
I certainly can. Okay. Oh, my character sheet's That's 17.
Okay, so it falls past the point where Garrock can see in the dark. You think it probably falls 200 feet-ish.
200 feet.
You would see as well, and now that you've seen like the torchlight go down as well, Garrock, you would see that like these spiral staircase, like it's not connected to anything apart from like the very top of the ceiling. How it's suspended is a question mark. And you can see that on like, if you're on the right-hand side and you're going down, on the left-hand side, that there is a statue that towers basically from the top all the way to the bottom of this creature, this thing that you've seen several times. And if you went to the other side, you would see the other staircase, there's a similar statue, this enormous, like 150, 200 foot tall statue.
I think that it's the same statue and the staircases are simply descending on either side of it. There's two staircases coming down,
Yes.
you said?
Yeah. Yes,
Does it look
you
like
probably
one?
think that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a very large statue beneath us of this sun god. These staircases seem to lead at least to the same place initially.
Well then, shall we descend?
Vasco gives a curt nod.
And Lloyd, just for clarity's sake, I'm going to have detect magic on just at all times. Just as soon as it runs out, I'm going to turn it back on.
Yep, that is a wise move. Though you can descend these stairs, you won't. You'll get the impression that they're being held up by magic. Like they don't make sense. There's not enough connection. As if like the top stairs connect to the ceiling and the bottom one to the floor, but separate to that, it's just spiraling. So that cannot be. It doesn't make any sense. So as you like descend, you would notice that, but there's no like surprising magic as you make your way down. It'll take you quite a while to descend those stairs, but eventually you will come into this big open room at the bottom. It's basically empty. There's almost nothing in it apart from this very, very large door. And you'll see like on the other side, the staircase goes back up the other way. And you can see the feet of the statue here and like look up at the enormity of it and the great sword that like is between the feet. The door ahead of you is maybe 30 feet wide and 50 tall, huge, and covered with this similar sort of like carving on the front. This has an image of this creature, and it's like floating in the air, and it's got one hand held out, and from it is like firing some sort of ray, and the other it has its sword raised. And advancing on it are this horde of creatures, a mixture of the ones that have been mentioned previously, the 6 men, orcs, goblins, lizard people, snake people, and tentacle things.
Do they
But it
all
is. Go ahead.
Do they all look to be united in this cause then, from the image that we're seeing?
So it seems, yeah. They're all trying to fight at this thing, though it looks like there is no contest. This is a god fighting mortals, and it seems arrogant as it floats there, blasting them with energy.
Vasco just shakes his head, taking in the spectacle, size of this thing. Even in the churches of the nation, nothing this big would have been carved.
The amount of time and resources it must have taken to build this place is... I don't even understand how it's possible.
I imagine that, and I would kind of look back at these staircases that I surmise are being held up by magic, and I would say, it stands to reason that this place was either built by magic or on the backs of slaves. maybe a combination of the two.
How many of these structures did we see? But dozens.
It seems that this empire stretched further than even the nation. And I would sort of look at Vasco as I say this. I didn't anticipate finding it like this. I imagined it being rubble, ruins, not some pristine thing.
The dark forces that operate in this place, if they are undermined, we can see to that. We can see that this place is naught but rubble. We need to find the source. We need to destroy it.
This is the heart of this place. Lies right through these doors here.
So then we should make ourselves ready and continue on. Any preparations we need to make, we should make them now.
When you are ready, the door will simply open. You simply ask it or will it, and it. Yeah, you can take as long as you want here. You're in this like enormous chamber with like ceilings way above you that you cannot see, although maybe Garrock can, because he can see everything. But it's just like barren and dark, and there's no carvings here. It's obviously some sort of antechamber. But it's barren of like the carvings or of the beyond the door of like the usual inscriptions that you've seen everywhere else. And you can like rest here. Everything you say will echo around this chamber.
Yeah, Balthazar would sort of request of Vasco that they take an hour. He still hasn't quite recovered from that spell that set him aflame earlier. And he would like some time to meditate, bandage his wounds, and rest up.
Yeah, Vasco's going to nod the wisdom of this. And he's going to kneel down and concentrate.
So you can relax. Relax is probably the wrong word. You can catch your breath here in this basement of this tomb in front of this great carving. You can see the detail is like exquisite, and you can see like the expressions of fear and awe in the faces of the humans, of the orcs, of the goblins, and even in the like reptilian faces of the snake people and the lizard people. Though there's no expression on the face of the tentacle things, alien in their design. And a look of absolute arrogance upon the face of the god that floats above them, smiting them. And you can have a short rest. And once you're ready, as I say, you think about opening the door and it opens to part. And there is beyond these great stone shelves. And inside there are tomes, texts of rich leather. Inside the pages of like maybe vellum, some sort of skin, certainly, covered with the same sort of writing that you'd seen on the previous carvings. You think there are maybe 30 or so books here in these shelves. And then carvings as well as you enter into this chamber. And you can see like a narrative. There's these carvings of like these creatures, like the one that you had seen everywhere, this sun-headed thing. looking at an ape, and in one hand is a light and the other clay, and then another section of this carving, and you will see the two being smashed together with the ape, and then a man stands. And similar sort of like descriptions of how they made the other races, like how they made the orcs and how they made all of these things, and like gave sentience or like awakened these various animals here. It seems is what they're suggesting, and you can see like these stories told over and over again. But also you can see hordes of them toiling under the whips of these masters and building these great monuments and these great pyramids all over. At the back of this room, there was a large statue with like this thick armor of a metal that looks like the metal of the spear, maybe, sort of glitters. And it stands, and as you enter into this room and you're kind of like looking around and wonder, the head will turn and it will outstretch a hand.
Is the hand in a gesture of any kind, or is it just reaching?
As if it's expecting something to be put in the hand.
Vasco looks to the spear, made of the same material, looks to his comrades wordlessly, and he reaches it out. And then, without waiting for confirmation, he places it in the hand.
It'll take it and it will turn head and then torso and then legs and move to the right of where you are to this door. It will like place its statue hand into like a groove on the door, and various gears will open. It will go inside and place the spear inside, and you can get a brief look, particularly you, Garrick, since you can see so far in the dark. Inside that room, the floor, the walls, the columns are made of bone. Skulls, thigh bones, finger bones, all around.
There's a lot of death in that room. There are bones and skulls everywhere. It's a room of death.
There's a sarcophagus in that room also, a great stone thing.
It is also the resting place of something I am not afraid to admit that I fear.
This is not the time to be losing your composure, half-breed.
I stand here, beside you, Lion. Even if my legs tremble, then you're not turn and run.
Vasco just looks you up and down.
What could be entombed here? What would be important enough to be entombed here? And then my eyes are kind of like straying to this gold-headed figure. You don't think it's one of them, do you?
I surely hope not. If it took an entire horde of 6 different species to stand up to this thing in the first place, the 3 of us have no chance.
The statue returns to its resting place and holds out a hand again.
Does the shield I have also look to be made of the same material?
Not necessarily, no.
The dagger?
It's really just the tip of the spear that has that same sort of shimmering look.
Vasco looks around the room to see if there's anything else that we might be able to put in the hand of this thing.
So at the base of like the statues, like the pedestal that it's on, you can see that there are like various like potions and offerings and pieces of gold and things like that. Again, like neatly piled around it. Though it just holds out its hand in sort of mute expectation. Beyond that, like there's just the books and the various carvings on the walls.
I will look at Vasco and say, try some of the gold.
Vasco looks at the pouch that he's just filled to the brim with his gold, and he takes a handful and just puts it on the hand of the gauntlet, rather.
And it walks back into that room and places it into the room, and then returns and puts out its hand.
Some sort of magical delivery service of offerings, tributes, I think. I think as long as we're in this room, it's going to hold that hand out.
What if we were to walk in its place?
You mean walk into the room of bone with the sarcophagus?
Yes.
You'll forgive me, Lord Commander. I'll do it if you ask it of me, but I'm not jumping at the chance.
Vasco looks and is there like any rubble or rocks anywhere, Lloyd?
Bizarrely clean and perfect.
Yeah, I thought so.
Like barely a mote of dust.
Well, while we're spending money, Vasco grumbles. He gets like a small handful of coins and he flings it into the room to see what happens.
Into the room with the bones?
Yep.
Statue looks, continues to hold out its hand.
Perhaps we can use this statue to deliver something else into the room, something that could potentially help us inside.
The rock produces the clay grenades that they had before. What about these?
Vasco smiles.
Do you hand them to the statue?
Yeah, they have to be lit first, I think. So, I don't remember how many of them we have left.
I used one that I had on that creature that dropped you into the canyon.
And I blew up one with the fight with Snake Fang. So that's at least 2 gone.
I don't remember, to be honest, how many you had.
So we started out with 10, according to my notes here. So I think we have at least a couple left, yeah.
Okay. So we'll tie, I don't know, maybe 4 of them together.
Mm-hmm.
And I can light the wicks from a distance.
Okay, good. Then we'll hand them to him, trying to leave the wick hanging out so that Balthazar can sing it.
So it'll take them and turn towards the room, and then look down at the hand and open it again, and then close it and look back to the room, like it doesn't know. Keeps looking back and forth and closing the hand and trying to figure out if this goes in the room or not. It's it doesn't give off the appropriate feel. But standing there
now.
Wait, is it still out here? Because I'm not going to light it if it's standing out here.
Oh, I thought it went in. Sorry.
No, it's still standing on the pedestal. It's trying to decide. It's obviously whatever these are. It doesn't. It's not been told to bring this kind of thing into the room.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought it went in.
No, it's all good. I would sort of point to the hand and say, I think it needs something else to incentivize it, Lord Commander. Another stack of gold, perhaps.
We can't be indefinitely giving this thing our earnings.
Well, ideally, this will be very definite.
Another handful of gold.
Looks down at the hand and then seems to settle that there is enough of the required stuff, and then we'll turn and begin walking towards the room.
When it is sort of just outside the room, press digitation to light the wick on the closest grenade.
Yep, it'll walk in and you'll hear it sort of crunch over some of the bones, and it's just about to place them down when you hear this this big explosion that like rocks through the place, and you can like feel the heat of the fire. You can give me like the damage for 4 of those things if you have it written down, Balthazar.
Yeah, I believe they were
Hefty, I think.
Yeah, I think they were 2 or 3d6. Hang on, I have it written down here. Oh, 4d6. Okay. 4d6 for 4 of them?
Yep, give me 12 d6s.
Okay, here we go. Okay. That's 8. Another 8, 16. 7, 12. So 28, 38, 40 damage total.
Damn. Okay, so there's this, and you can hear this sort of rumbling from beyond, and the statue will like turn, like its head all the way around first, and then its torso, and then its like legs will follow, and the sort of like dumbfounded obedience will like switch, and it will like shoulders will roll forward, and it's going to move towards you in an aggressive way. I'll need you to roll initiative, please.
Jesus.
I like how we're like, there's not enough danger in here. We got to go looking for a fight in the dungeon.
We start a fight with a postman. Jeez.
Okay, so Garrock, you're first. Like you realize that this has not destroyed the statue, and it'll like turn, and like, you can see like smoke coming from it, and like parts of it are on fire, and it'll like turn and begin walking towards you. At this stage, it's going to be 60 feet from where you guys are.
Okay, so the first thing that Garrock is going to do is once again reach down into this pouch and produce this kind of herbal dried bundle and put it into his mouth and begin chewing it and getting it kind of wet with his saliva. And as he pulls it out of his mouth, he's going to kind of draw a kind of symbol over his face and cast Hunter's Mark on the statue with a bonus action.
Perfect.
And then as his action itself, I am actually going to ready an attack. Whenever he, or like if he reaches down with his hand or something to come in for an attack, then I'm going to stab at it with my spear.
Okay, no problem. It is going to move forward 30, and then you'll see like the eyes begin to glow, and like a panel will open on the chest of this thing, and there will be like a it's going to fire something from it. Let's see. I'm going to roll dice to see which one of you unlucky gentlemen this is. Of course, it's always Balthazar. You're in the middle, man. It's never a good place to be. I need you to make me a. I think it's Dex save. Yes, sir. Dex save, please.
That's a 15.
Okay. One second. Okay, you're going to take 12 acid damage as this like sphere fires forth. It's going to like just whiz past you. It doesn't directly hit you. Otherwise, you think it would have burned through you. As it misses just about, and you succeed on the save. It's going to continue. It's going to move basically to where it is, and it's going to be its turn, and then it's yours, Balthazar.
Okay. So Balthazar, he leaves the sword on his back, and he's going to reach out with his one good arm and invoke the power of the smoking mirror and cast 2 beams of Eldritch Blast here. So the 2 beams are coming towards this thing. Oh man. Okay, so that's a natural 20 on the first one, and then a modified 21 on the second. I assume both of those hit.
Yep. So double damage for the crit, and this thing being like a construct is immune to critical effect tables, unfortunately.
Okay. So 7 times 2, so 14 damage on that critical hit. And then 6 damage on the second one, so that'll be 20 total with the 2 Eldritch Blasts. So Balthazar goes into a defensive stance, swirling the smoke and the shadows around him, and he juts out with his arm, and these 2 sort of paw-like appendages come streaming out, and they both just rake across this stone statue, and like bits of stone and debris sort of come flying off of it as they pummel into it.
Yeah, it's an odd feeling. You haven't really fought something like this before. There's no like yelp of pain. There's no even look of concern. It's just standing there as like you know it's effective, but there's no emotion, no feeling. Vasco.
Yeah, seeing this acidic projectile and the exchange of fire erupt throughout the chamber, Vasco is going to join in kind, and with a flick, he brings up his flintlock from his side, and he levels it at the construct. He gets a 21 on the attack.
Okay.
That is going to be 14 points of damage as he blasts it in the chest with the flintlock.
Yep, there's a bunch of like stone clatters away from it.
He's also going to take a few steps back as well.
I would. Okay, Garrock. It hasn't come quite close to you yet. It's still 30 feet away.
So while Garrock has kind of been waiting for his opening, and the others have taken the opportunity to go ahead and attack it, he kind of saw this thing open up and shoot a blob of acid. Managed to avoid that, but he's also looking around the room to see kind of what else is in here. I know the shelves with the books and the different reliefs that showed the engravings, the creation of the beings. How are those attached? Are they just the wall, or are they?
So they're actually pillars, like freestanding pillars, maybe 15 or so feet high, that like are placed evenly spaced, like around there's 6 of them, in like a sort of path that leads up to where the statue is.
And is there room between the pillar and the wall to like brace yourself?
To climb up? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Garrock is going to run over to a pillar that is closest to this creature, putting the pillar between himself and the creature, and then he is going to basically put his back against the pillar and his legs against the wall, and he's just going to start trying to work his way up towards the top of the pillar.
Perfect. Yep, you can give me acrobatics or athletics, whichever you prefer.
All right, athletics. Yes, 22.
No problem. You're able to scale up, and you can stand on top of this pillar now, 15 feet in the air.
Whenever I get to the top, I'm actually not going to try to climb up. What I want to try to do is start rocking this pillar as much as I can. I'd like to try to get this pillar to fall on this guy.
Awesome. Yep. Okay. No problem. So you start to kick, and you can feel this like ever so slight wobble. You think it'll take a little bit more work, but it's underway. The thing is going to randomly choose a target. It's Garrock. It like starts moving in that direction, and you can see it turn side on to the 2 of you who are like further back, and and it's going to try and smash you with its fists as best that it can manage. The first one is just this clumsy strike, and it tries to get you, and it just punches into the pillar, and you can see like this ancient priceless artwork. Like part of it is just like splattered across the wall, and like shrapnel hits into it. The second one, he's going to try and swing with his other fist. That's going to be a 21 to hit, which I think probably should do it. It's going to be 15 bludgeoning damage from that. It probably just grazes you, otherwise you would be paced as it stands near to you. I'll also need you to make me a wisdom saving throw, please.
17.
Okay, so it lets out this like really deep noise, and you can feel for a moment like time slowing around you, but then you like resist and shake it free, and you're not affected. Okay, that was the deliverer, Balthazar.
So I'm going to move. You said this thing is about 30 feet away from Vasco and I.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move 30 feet and basically put myself on the other side of this. So if we're looking at it like from the side, it would be Garak, the pillar, this thing, and then me. And I'm going to aim 2 Eldritch Blasts at the pillar and use Grasp of Hadar with them. So I'm basically going to be slamming energy into the pillar and then pulling it towards me. So I'm going to try and help Garak pull this pillar down.
Awesome.
So one of them's going to be an 18 and the other one's going to be a 10.
Yeah, it's like not moving. So I think 10 is its armor class.
Okay, perfect. All right. So here's some damage. It's going to be 6 and 9. So 15 total. And I imagine what this looks like is this sort of spectral panther leaps out from my arm, and it sort of grasps both sides of the pillars with its paws and sort of pulls. And you can see, dust and debris sort of falling from the top as it begins to start dislodging from the ceiling.
Yeah, it's definitely doing so. It's starting to rock, and you can see like as the panther like pulls with this like spectral roar, and there's like this, and you can see like a part of the base has come free, and it's starting to wobble pretty intensely as like Garak is kicking and pushing as hard as he can. Vasco
cottons onto the plan and realizes that the construct is going to need to stay where it is if the plan is to succeed. So he rushes forward to stand directly in the creature's way to make sure it can't approach, and hopefully he'll be able to jump out of the way in time, but that's another story. He strikes out at the construct with a 23 and a 16.
23 hits.
He will smite, so that's 15 slashing damage and 16 radiant as there's a glint of light just springs from his great blade and slices into the thing.
Glorious. Okay, Garak, give me an athletics check, please. I will allow you to do so with advantage because of the help that Balthazar has provided.
That is another 22.
There's like this crack as like the final bits of stone like give out, and it begins to like move. Vasco, can you give me a dexterity saving throw, please?
That's my best. That is a 14.
Okay, so I think that you'll be caught by the edge of it. As you like try to jump out of the way, this like thing falls on top of the construct. It's like punching like crazy, like these piston fists. But it falls, and the weight is too much, and you hear it like the various like servos and stuff whine in the statue as it like tries to hold up the weight, and then there's like this, and it will collapse. This artwork telling the history of the snake people from their very creation into dust as the thing like hits down into the ground. I'm just going to give it a whole buttload of damage for that. Somebody can roll me fireball damage, 8d6, please.
5.
Jeremy, I think you should roll it, man. You were the one that came up with the pillar idea.
You go. Okay,
so it's 8d6. It's 8. Jeez. That's a whopping 19 points.
Ooh, not great.
No.
Okay, so it falls and you can see it's on its back now, and like it's obviously like dented and part of the stone has been chipped, but the creature beneath still twitches, though it has taken that hit. You gonna say something, Vasco?
Just quickly, because you said it clipped me. Do I take any damage for that?
You'll take half of that, so you'll take 10.
Okay.
Okay, so it is not prone, and it's going to try and rise out of the stone, which will take half of its movement. It's then going to turn and try and pummel you into dust, Vasco.
Come on!
15 misses, and a 21. Does that hit?
It does, yes.
That'll be 17 bludgeoning damage as the fist smashes in. And I'll need each of you to make me a wisdom saving throw, please.
That's more like it.
This noise comes out. Although I think you might have a bonus because we're standing near Vasco, right?
I'm level 7. I don't know if I have that yet. Let me check.
You get a level 6, maybe? Aura of something?
Oh, yeah, Aura of Protection. Yeah, you absolutely do. You get plus
Your charisma
3 to this, yes. That's 21 for me.
Okay.
With the generous +3 from Vasco, that's a total of 8.
Okay. So Vasco,
Didn't
you're
fare
able
much
to
better.
you're able to resist, but the other two, you feel like time's slowing. You are slowed, which means you cannot take reactions. Your speed is halved. You can only make one attack if you take the multi-attack action. You can only take on your turn an action or a bonus action, not both. You just feel this like wah, and like time begins to like stretch out, and you're like moving. You can see them, Vasco, moving at this like comic, like slow motion speed. And that was its turn. Balthazar.
Okay. Let's see. That changes things for me here. Let's go ahead. I'm going to use an action. Balthazar reaches back. He actually doesn't reach back. He just sort of gestures in the air, and the sword on his back disappears and then instantly reappears in his hand as he uses magic to draw his sword magically. And it sort of materializes in the air in front of him. The two snakes sort of slithering and intertwining to create the hilt, and then the blade emerges from it, and he sort of like holds it in front of him in a defensive stance. And that'll be my action for the turn, is to draw the sword.
Okay, no problem. Balthazar, Vasco.
Yeah, he's reeling back from these piston attacks, stumbling over the rubble of the pillar, and he's going to strike back again, this time with a 21 and a 19.
Both hit.
Excellent. Didn't quite get around to doing damage this time. So that's 14 slashing damage and 17 smite damage for the first attack. And the
It's actually
second
going to end it already.
It does?
Yep. So you can tell me how.
So he's being struck with these pistons. Bam, bam, bam. And then the last attack that goes for him, he blocks with the greatsword. He brings the creature's arms like flying to its side, and he just plunges the greatsword into the thing's chest. Then the smite goes off, exploding it from the inside.
Perfect. Yep. There's like this, and like stone shrapnel flies everywhere until at the end there is just the skeletal structure remaining of what was once the statue.
Sound off.
Still standing, Lord Commander. And I'm sort of like leaning on the sword, just sweat pouring off of my face.
Brock kind of stands up out of the pile of rubble from the column that collapsed, kind of waving away like the dust and smoke and stuff from all of this this collapse. I am also better off than I have been before.
Vasco looks down at his dented armor, and he's like blood's pouring from different gaps in it, and he's just going to clasp his fist like that, and he's going to begin to heal himself of some of his hit points. How bad do you guys look? I don't want to be too meta about it, but like
Baltazar is actually not looking too bad after the short rest. He's a little injured, a few scrapes and bruises, but otherwise he's all right.
And Garak took a glancing hit from the creature, but it was a decent amount of damage.
Okay, Vasco is going to give himself 20 HP back, and he is going to rest his hand upon you, Garok, with a level of disdain that comes off him in waves, and you get 10.
I love that disdain healing.
Disdain, begrudging healing.
Balthazar would sort of release his grip on the sword, and it would instantly sort of rematerialize in the scabbard on his back. And he comes forward and kind of sifts through the rubble of this thing with his boot, just shaking his head. Never seen anything like this either. The statue that moves and walks and attacks. Some sort of machine.
Is it machine or is it magic?
I think it's probably both.
So he kind of turns, looking in the direction of the bone room.
Do we proceed?
I think to make the effort worth it, yeah, we do.
So you can walk with clattering, echoing steps through this hall towards the mausoleum itself. As I say, the floor is bone. The columns that hold up the ceiling are bone. The walls are bone. Everywhere you can see skulls of men, of orcs, of goblins, of like reptiles, and stranger things still. Bones, finger bones, all kinds of bones that cover this room. At the center is this great sarcophagus of this sort of marble, and it's inlaid with that silvery blue metal, sort of sparkling like the spear and like the guardian outside. And there's a tablet there at the base of the sarcophagus in that script, but also in an older script, a younger script than this, but an older for you, sort of like if you imagine like the Latin of this setting that like the priests would speak, written in that language too, and also written in the language that you would recognize, Garok, as to what your mother could read, and then also in several others, this same inscription 7 times.
This is one tablet that has all of the inscription?
Yes.
Okay.
I recognize this entry here. I cannot read it. It was forbidden for me to learn to do so, but this was... My mother knew this language here.
This is exactly the sort of thing our patron would be interested in, I shouldn't wonder.
I agree.
Is the tablet loose, Lloyd?
No, it's attached to the sarcophagus. You'd have to like chip it away.
Or take a rubbing?
Yes.
I have parchment, but I don't want to touch the sarcophagus. How many times do I get divine sense it back if I rest? Sure, let's see.
Probably.
I will also activate detect magic again.
Yeah, so I'm looking for undead or anything really, celestial or fiends.
So there's no necromantic energy here. It looks like it's actually a tomb. Though you can sense from within the sarcophagus bright and shining enchantment magic from something within in the shape of a sword, Balthazar.
I kind of like have to actually shield my gaze a little bit, and I blink my eyes and they return to normal. And I go, I'm not saying that we should open this sarcophagus, but there is a powerful sword inside here. And I would look at Vasco, probably around the same size as the sword you're wielding, Lord Commander.
Vasco looks at it and he gives a nod. Then he takes out his mace and he raises it up and he brings it down as hard as he can on top of the sarcophagus.
It like begins to shatter, and as you like bring it down again, and you can like chop away, and you can see that within there's just like a husk, a skeleton. As you like continue like hacking away, you're able to like pull, and there is like a long, taller than a person, but still a skeleton, similar bone structure, although the face, the skull, more angular with sharper teeth. But clutched in its dead hands is a sword, a great sword of purest silver, it looks like. It's got this ruby gem at the crossguard and at the hilt, and it's almost bright to look at. It is, insane to see. The craftsmanship is glorious, and it's inlaid with those scratchings, those sort of runes that you had seen all over this temple, along the blade, along the fuller of the blade. A shining example of craftsmanship.
A strange look goes over Vasco's face as he looks at it. And reaching out with his gauntleted hands, a smile comes across his face and he says, "This is a gift for all of our toil here." And he's going to reach out to take the sword.
As he reaches, Balthazar, you see prowling along the pillars at the top, the smoking mirror. "I would not. They will come for the sword."
Ooh.
These things from other worlds.
And I would watch Vasco reaching for the sword, and I look up at the smoking mirror and I say, "It is not for me to decide."
Gone. And you can pick up the sword, Vasco. Its weight is perfect. The balance, beyond perfect. And as you like, it even cuts the air, it seems. There's like that sound that only fantasy swords make in films, that as it like cuts through the air. And you are filled with a sense of power as you hold it.
Yes. The craftsmanship, the balance, the poise. This has truly made this journey worthwhile. And he turns and he looks with angry eyes to his compatriots.
And Balthazar will actually turn so his back is to Vasco, and he'll look at Garak and do like a very exaggerated like eye roll. And then he'll turn around and he'll grab this spear that the golem creature brought in here, and he'll hold it out to Garak and say, "Your preferred weapon, correct? I think this is yours."
If you are sure this was a weapon of man.
As you take it, Garak, you have a vision too, similar to the one that Balthazar had, because you are partly man also. And you can see through the eyes of a man who's hiding. He's like in a bush, and he's like gripping the spear as tightly as he can, and you can see this thing that like seems to shine, and around it, it's raining, but there's no rain hitting this thing. The rain seems to like move around it, and it moves with these like, and this shining silver blade cutting through the grass as it walks, and it turns to look at the man, and then you're back.
He kind of staggers back just a second, and
and then looks up at Balthazar. Thank you.
You are half human, after all.
I forget that fact. It is one that people are fond of reminding me of.
Right. And I would turn to Vasco. We should copy down this inscription, grab as many books as we can carry, and take our leave of this place. And you would probably, it wouldn't require any sort of check to notice that Balthazar's demeanor has changed somewhat in the last 30 seconds or so. He seems a little skittish and antsy, and he wants to get out of here.
We must take this tablet if we can. And anything else of its like.
I can copy it down if you want to grab some of the books, as many as we can carry, load them up on Tuvarok.
And for the books that we can't take, Vasco is going to try and make hastily scribbled notes of the titles, perhaps, and
Sure.
in the best way that you can, writing a different language when you don't know it.
Yeah. You begin to are you taking rubbing, or are you going to try to take the actual tablet?
I was just going to either copy it down or do a rubbing, yeah.
Yep. So you can begin copying it and maybe do both to make sure you get it all. And as you do so, you're working, and maybe it's 15, 20 minutes, and you can see that there's this sudden, as a finger bone falls from the ceiling.
Did anyone else, and I would call back, anyone else hear that?
I imagine at this point that Balthazar might actually be alone in the room.
Yeah.
No? Okay. It was just me. Okay. And I'll continue copying it down, probably a little bit with more haste, feeling very uneasy.
Garrock, you're in the room with the pillars, looking around at this ancient history.
And I think Garrock has found himself in this specific spot on the floor that he's staring at. And he's removed the mask, and he's holding the mask in one hand and the spear in the other. And as he kind of turns his head towards the mask, he sees that he has found himself standing in the exact spot between the pillar that describes the history of the orcs and the pillar that describes the history of the humans. And he realizes that this is where he stands, perfectly in the middle.
Rad. You can have inspiration. You're trying to copy down these titles, Vasco, and you're trying to get the foreign script right. They're all made by chisel marks, it looks like, and so using the quill that you have is a little bit difficult, but you're trying your best to get it across here. And Balthazar, you're scribbling in another. Bone clatters from the ceiling down onto the ground.
How long until I finish doing this?
1d20 minutes.
Oh man. Do you want me to roll it?
Yep.
Of course, my streak of rolling high continues when I don't want it to. That's a 15.
Okay, so you got about 15 minutes, you reckon, of continuous writing. I think at this stage you probably have the text in the foreign script, but the important part is that you also get the one that the guy can read, right? That's the important part.
So I'm just very hastily doing it, and it's taking a lot longer than I want it to, partly because I'm doing it with one arm. And so I'm I have the parchment sort of on a book, like on my knee, and I'm copying it down. And I'm like, why did I volunteer to do this? I have one hand. I keep forgetting I have one hand. And I'm like, just trying my best to do this.
The skull falls from the ceiling and clatters onto where the sarcophagus was.
Hey, Lord Commander, I would call out.
What is it?
I think that this pyramid is less stable than we would like it to be, and like to punctuate it, like another bone like falls from the ceiling. I think we need to get out of here more quickly than we might like.
Four explosions should probably undermine the structure of any place. We will work quickly and then we will leave.
Right. Okay. And I'll continue working as quickly as possible.
Okay. You can actually give me an Arcana check or something similar to see how quickly you can do it.
Okay, cool.
Any intelligence-based thing.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Okay, that's a 16, and I've got a +0 to everything, so 16 total.
Okay, so you begin to like pick up the pace of your scribbling. Like you've very carefully taken the inscription in the foreign language, and now you're getting to one that's familiar. It's got a similar alphabet to the one that you use, and you're doing a little bit quicker, trying to get the letters, like the impressions or whatever, as quickly as you can, as like another skull and another begins falling from the ceiling. And even like as you sit, like your weight is on a skull, and it like shatters beneath you. And out in the hall, you can start to feel, or see rather, Garrock, like a sort of dust, sort of rumble, and like a piece of dust, or like a cloud of dust will like come from one of the gaps between the walls.
There's something going on here. This place is shifting or something. We should hurry.
Now 5 skulls at once begin to fall, and finger bones start to sort of pour from the top of this ceiling. You see some of the columns start to like rumble. It's getting worse.
Yeah, Garrock will actually run to the door of the bone room. What are you doing?
I'm almost done. I'm almost done. If you two need to go. No, it's I have to get this last part correct. Just go. You two go. I look at him and I go, I can get out of here. You two can't.
Damn it. And he's gonna turn and like start trying to push Vasco if he's not moving already.
Vasco is already going. He's already going. As soon as he said that, he's going.
So the two of you begin sprinting from this room, like carrying, weighed down by your riches, up the staircase, this spiral staircase that you're going to have to like run all the way up, and it's exhausting. I'm going to need both of you to make me an athletics check, please. Balthazar can have another intelligence-based check from you.
Yes, absolutely.
I rolled a 4, so I'll be using my inspiration that you gave me earlier for the T-Rex piss. Yes, that's much better. That's a 23.
Okay, so the two of you are like barreling it up these stairs. I think like as you're running, like there's like a couple of gold coins that like spill out of the pack that you're carrying, Vasco, and just like plummet down hundreds of feet, like dum, dum. And like as it hits, dum, we're back into the hole where Balthazar is, and like 3 more skulls are like hitting the ground all around you, and like one of like this finger bone like lands right in the middle of your sketching as you're like trying to get it all down. So now I'm going to require a skill challenge from the two of you guys who are fleeing, and we'll use Balthazar's intelligence-based stuff to try and get the text down. You're going to need 4 successes before 2 failures.
So I just got another 18 on my next intelligence check. I'm just furiously scribbling it down, and I'm like blowing bone dust off of the paper as I'm writing.
Okay, that's a success.
Because we've already made an athletics attempt, does that mean that one's off the table now? Or
no, so it's only starting now, so you can use athletics, but only one of you can.
I'm going to, if you don't mind, because it's the only one that's going to really help me in this situation. Okay, that is a dirty 20.
Okay, yeah. So as Balthazar is just like desperately scribbling and like pouring some bone dust on to dry the ink, and then like writing more as quickly as he can, we cut to see like Vasco like taking the steps 2 at a time, like running as like this endless drop on his left, and like pieces of gold are like skimming out of the bag as he's just like running as fast as he can up the stairs. Garrock.
Yeah, I think Garrock is going to have. He's using the mask's power to kind of see these stairs in a completely different way. And if it's possible, I'm going to use perception to just
right it is. Yep.
Run up these things as fast as he can. I almost picture like the Guy Ritchie way where like the camera's attached to the person.
Yeah.
Kind of weird shit. Oh, thank God I did. Because I have advantage on perception because of the mask. It's a 22.
Okay, yep. So you like are running and you can see this like boulder falling, and you like leap over where it's about to hit, and it smashes the staircase behind you, and like falls plummeting to these various bits of the staircase as you like begin to clamber the rest of the way up. And we are back to Balthazar.
All right, so I just made another intelligence-based check. I only got a 10 on this one.
Okay, so that's going to fail. You're like trying to scribble, but as you're doing so, like this thigh bone is just going to like fall and like smash into your pen hand and knock the quill out of your hand and spill some of the ink onto the ground. You have to like scrabble after it to get it, and you can feel now the rumbling in one of the columns that's holding up the ceiling. In the middle, some of the bones start to spill out, and it begins to fall. The ceiling has not got long left. Vasco.
Vasco is, I think he has a flashback to a time where he was in some faraway place during a siege, and rubble and rocks are falling around him, and he sees artillery fire stones falling before him, and he knows that he has to pick the right path through the debris and through the chaos as he uses survival. Getting an 18.
Okay, yeah, you can see like things all around, and you have this flashback to the war zone that you're in as like a huge flagstone column just like falls before you, and you like leap over it, and then you skid under another one as you're like dragging the treasure behind you. You've made it to the top of the stairs, and you're in that corridor, and you can almost see the light of day beyond. Garrock. Actually, enough successes, sorry. So you've actually succeeded at skeleton. So you can see the light of day, and you're like scrambling for it, and Garrock is like right behind you. The two of you like carrying the treasure, but down below in the mausoleum still, it's starting to collapse. Balthazar, you've gotten it down, the necessary amount of text. You've like taken a rough rubbing, but you've also like transcribed as best you can your language and the ancient one. What's the plan?
So I quickly roll up the parchment. I'm tucking it away. Just things are falling, and I kind of stumble out of the mausoleum, bone dust just covering me. I'm stumbling. I grab onto a pillar that is sort of toppling over, and I look up at the ceiling, and the ceiling goes and falls. And I like make a quick gesture and speak a word, and I become smoke. And I'm going to cast gaseous form.
Amazing. Yep. So the two get to the top of the pyramid, and you can see like that it's rumbling beneath you, and you can feel it, and you can begin to like slide your way down those stairs as quick as you can. You're unable to like see the path that you need to take, and so it's like, and it's one of those situations where you're like falling but running as best that you can down these stairs, and you're almost like sliding down. You like run to the edge of where the explosion zone is, like where the tree line begins again, and you'll see like as like the top of the pyramid and the huge golden pyramid on top just like like smashes down all over the place, and there's just rubble, and it's like nothing ever existed here. And where is Balthazar, you think?
Yeah, I think Garak is definitely like standing, like not breathing, just like staring at the rubble, just waiting and hoping that his fear is not true.
And there's just this rubble and dust and smoke kicked up everywhere, all around what was once this huge pyramid. You can see like the ruin of that statue, like this huge head, like smash into the dirt, and like the stone below. Everything is cracked, everything is broken, and then from the smoke materializes Balthazar.
Yeah, it's like this wisp, and it becomes this vaguely humanoid shape, and then Balthazar appears, and he's like mid stumble. He like materializes and sort of falls on the ground, and he goes, "Ta-da!"
Ha! Like the most raucous, loud, screaming laugh just erupts from Vasco as he like charges up and like grabs hold of you, pulls you to your feet, and just slaps you across the chest and says, "I knew a dead man. I knew that you could get out."
I got it too. I got the inscription, and I'm sort of like, I can barely stand. I'm like leaning into you, Vasco, and I'm just like, I did it. I finished it.
Yeah, Garak runs over and actually throws his arms like around Balthazar and actually handily picks him up and like shakes him. Yes, Golta, you are hung like a horse.
Vasco's looking over your shoulder, and then he just like looks at what you've written. He says, "Your handwriting's terrible."
Well, it was written under duress, Lord Commander. Did we get away with some of the treasure, at least?
Oh yes, a bountiful amount. Plenty of gold, some weapons, a good day's work.
So you stand looking at the ruin of this once enormous pyramid, now just dust and rubble. You can kind of see a little bit of the glint of that gold that was at the top, but now it's just like this almost pit that exists here with just like broken stone everywhere, and the ancient history vanishes. As you look, Vasco, you can see like that you have done your job and that like the heresy has been wiped from this world, and then you feel a voice. What witless worm bears me now? From the blade, and that's where we'll end today's session. Thanks, guys. All right, that was fucking really fun.
That was really fun.
Felt really D&D-ish.
Loot, yes, loot.
Lots of loot, lots of traps and weird puzzles and stuff. It felt really D&D-ish.
Fireball.
Oh, it's so good. I love a good dungeon crawl. Oh my god.
So good.
All right, thanks for watching, all of you who did. I hope you enjoyed. Check out these lovely gentlemen and their various channels. And buy Iskloft on Kickstarter if you want to do that. Okay, bye.